welcome to the Game Informer Show. I am your host, Andy McNamara, and today we have quite a show. Oh my gosh. So after we felt like what was a little bit of a lull in gaming, though it was not that big, was that this week we have a ton of games to talk about. We are going to talk about the new Assassin's Creed game. We are going to talk about Streets of Rage. We're going to talk about Gears Tactics. We're going to talk about Predator. We're going to talk about Trials of Mana. We have a lot of games to talk about. And in that fashion, I'm going to bring in a bunch of guests this week, which I haven't done in a while, but we're going to have a rotating cast. And so I think that's going to be kind of fun. So lots of guests this week from the GI crew. And then we'll finish it up with some great community stuff. So first and foremost, I did want to say, please follow us, like the content if you like it, hit the bell if you want to get alerted to the content in the future. Any of that stuff really helps us out, so we appreciate it. And if you're listening to it as an audio podcast, please subscribe on any of those platforms. Is very, very helpful. So thank you from the bottom of our GI show hearts. But today on my panel, I have look at this crew. Look at this crew. I've got Matt Miller.
Hello, I'm doing well. I'm wearing a collared shirt, so I feel pretty good.
It seems to be a theme today, except Joe Juba.
No, well, we're talking about assassins, so I have to wear my assassin's hood.
That's good. Good planning. Good planning.
This is really good for the audio listeners. Yeah. I am wearing a hood.
Joe covering his face is good for everyone. No, just kidding, Joe. We love you. We love you. I kid. And Alex Stadnick is here. How you doing, Alex?
I'm good, guys. I actually sabotaged Joe. I told him to not wear a colored shirt today. That was gotcha.
Well, here in Minnesota, we've had some nice days, like some weather that is like nearing warm. I mean, it's been rainy, but and like any good Minnesotan, we get really excited about it and kind of try to get in that summer spring mood as quickly as we can.
Get outside, get some sun.
Despite us still being under coronavirus restrictions, so we're still doing this podcast from home. So please excuse any hiccups from streaming the show. We appreciate that. But I did do some math this week. This is our 7th show from home.
Wow.
Which is crazy. Yeah. And so the first show was March 19th. And what we're facing here is episode 500. We are right there. That is next week. We are recording episode 500.
That's exciting.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what kind of huge blowout you have planned.
Big party at Andy's house.
Yeah. There is no big party. There is no,
Everybody should show up right outside his door.
I have reached out to have some special guests hopefully join us next week. There's always certain amount of logistics that it takes to do these things from home. But I think I have some things set up that I hope fans will enjoy. Otherwise, we'll stick to the things that we do normally and just have a good show. And we'll just make sure that when we hit 600, that's when we'll be out and we'll be able to do something big for 600, right? Or 1,000 or something like that down the line. So we'll get to it. We'll get to it. So Assassin's Creed, right? I mean, there's always an Assassin's Creed on the horizon, right? We always know there's one coming because Ubisoft and the fans, we love them. We want more. But here, yesterday, they did a slow drawing on streaming services to eventually reveal the name. So it's out there. What is it? Joe Juba, what is the name of the new Assassin's Creed?
It's Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which confirms the rumors that had been floating around for a while that the next one coming out would be a Viking-themed Assassin's Creed.
So are you excited about this setting?
Oh, yes. It turns out that, just for me personally, a lot of my favorite games actually do have that sort of Viking Norse thing. I'm even going back to Valkyrie Profile on PS1 or the more recent God of War on PS4. I really like it when a game can nail that sort of cold Scandinavian aesthetic, right?
But that was the first step in this, and then now you have. I don't even know this. I don't know this, people. I wanted to come into this fresh. Tell me what's the gameplay about? What can you tell us about Valhalla? What is it? Is it based in reality? Is it a little bit more mystical than others, like Maceborn Legend? Tell me about the setting.
They are jumping back to 9th century, right?
Ninth century. So the 800s, dark ages of England.
The good old 1800s. Everybody loves them.
No, 800s.
800s. Yeah. Oh my God.
And I think, one of the cool things that that surprised me a little bit is that they are exploring. It's not all about just like being up in Norway. It's the bulk of the game, it sounds like, is going to be England because they're Vikings and they're raiding. And so, you're going to get to explore the dark ages of England, but as a Viking raider.
Yeah, you got to pillage. That's your number one thing.
Pillaging. Right? I mean, right.
One of the new mechanics in the game is raiding. Like, it's you with your crew on your long ship, and you're like looking at settlements along like the English countryside or the coastline, and you're like, well, they've got stuff we need.
That looks nice.
Take them. Yeah. So
I just have this thing of like the English countryside, someone drinking their tea on their porch, and then the Vikings show up.
Yeah, well,
that would be terrifying.
Yeah, bad. But that's going to be you.
So to
be that guy.
To hit some of the basic questions that I think everyone had out of the gate, it's your hero is like a Viking clan leader named Eivor.
Eivor? How do you spell
Eivor?
It's weird.
Eivor.
All right.
I never would have got that.
And Eivor can be male or female. You choose at the beginning.
Gotcha.
Though I think in the trailer we only saw the male, the male version of it. But so, and then one thing that they're going for in this is a little more character customization. So I think, if I'm understanding this correctly, the basic sort of look of the character will be uniform, but you can like customize hairstyles, tattoos, and things like that to give you a little more, like ownership over the appearance of the character.
I mean, you had a lot of that in Odyssey. I mean, like there were a lot of variety in the way that your character could look.
You could put on a bunch of different gear, but what we're talking about here is like actual sort of like tattoo, hairstyle customization,
gotcha.
And that was not in Odyssey.
Okay, gotcha. So just more like appearance. I'm sorry, I want to make sure I get this right. Okay.
Yeah, and it's being made by the team at Ubisoft Montreal. So these are the folks who made Black Flag, who made Origins, and it seems like it's. I mean, again, from the bit that we've seen so far, it seems like it's kind of a fusion of those, in the sense that, like, okay, you're a Viking, you're on ships. There's that kind of like naval element, but it also seems like it's continuing that that sort of paradigm shift for the franchise in terms of the way it approaches combat and progression and stuff like that. A little more, Origins Odyssey style on that front. Though they say too that they're also changing, that they're also taking a new approach there too. So I don't think it's necessarily a straight line between all of those things.
I think the Assassin's Creed franchise has for a long time likes to play around with expectations that people have about understanding different groups in history and different cultures and that kind of stuff. The pirate dynamic in Black Flag, I think, is a really good example of where they tried to play with those expectations. And, without knowing a lot more about it, it seems pretty clear from what we've seen that they're trying to do some of that same stuff. I mean, the initial CG trailer shows off this idea of like what the English think of these Vikings, and it being contrasted against the Vikings themselves being, very oriented towards their family and trying to, really talk about how rich this culture was. And I think that that's something that they're really going to try to drill down into a lot.
Interesting.
That sounds awesome. I'm totally with that.
And in that trailer, we see Eivor using a hidden blade, which you did not have in Odyssey. So we know those are back in, some capacity.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Did you guys get the vibe from what you saw and heard that it would be not necessarily the brother-sister relationship of Odyssey, but like, are the two characters connected that you could pick from?
It seems like both of them
are the same person.
It seems like it's Eivor, and it's either a male or female version of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
There's also another big thing that they seem to be really focused on this time, which I'm excited about, is building a settlement, right? The idea is that back home, there's all kinds of territorial and clan wars and limited resources. And then that's what drives a lot of these Danes to go to England and try to find a better life for their people. And so you're going to England and you're establishing and building out a settlement, which I think is going to be something that Assassin's Creed has flirted with in certain previous entries, but it sounds like they're really going deep into that this time, which I'm stoked about. And they also want the NPCs that are part of that clan and part of your longship to be real like personalities, like people that you come to know.
So, like when they added this rating mechanic, are they going to do anything different with that mechanically wise or gameplay wise? Have they addressed that at all? Like, are they going to try to make it where you control larger forces or anything like that to create any kind of different feeling of combat based on around that, Joe?
They did not, at least in my conversation. I interviewed the creative director of the game, which is something you can see on the site right now. That's not something that we had a chance to delve into super deep, so I don't know. I don't know the specifics of how those mechanics work.
I think they talked a little bit about the distinction between raids and they also want to have these bigger kind of fortress assaults, right?
Yeah. So raids being a thing that you can just sort of do from your ship with the crew that you've established there to get resources and stuff that can feed back into your settlement. But assaults being things that they describe more as like big set piece battles against, like Miller said, big fortresses and things like that. So I don't know exactly, like they talk about, wanting to make them very, very big and sort of memorable moments, but I don't know specifically the rollout of that.
Did they give a time frame for when they believe this game will hit? I assume it's a holiday 2020.
Holiday 2020. Yeah.
Oh, all right.
So
the good old holiday.
Odyssey released in October. That seems like a good spot for it for me. Like I think, but
I guess, yeah. Yeah, we never know with COVID if it's going to delay any of that stuff. You know what I mean? But
yeah, that's a good point.
You certainly like to look at history.
Yeah. They also, I think, have been pretty open about like this is going to be shared generation, right? Like in terms of platforms.
Yep. So
cross-gen and current.
Cross-generation, yeah.
So I've been playing Odyssey. I haven't finished it yet, but one of the things I noticed was there were just a lot of systems, right? Which is super cool that they build so many systems, but sometimes it feels like they don't finish them out, right? Like that they build this whole system and you're like, okay, I got it. And then like you use it to just kind of like tick things off on a box, right? Like slowly but surely, right? Like, okay, here's this set of lists that you're going to, go through. And here's this set of lists that you're going to go through. I mean, I love the list. Don't get me wrong. It definitely works for me in a lot of ways, but sometimes it really feels like the systems that they've created are really an interesting idea that they start down and they never really finish, right? Like, I wonder if they're going to try to stick to some basics here, or if they're really going to try to, like you say, always surprise us with something new with this game.
Yeah, like that kind of question is so. Like I have right here this little book. I had several pages of questions in here, and not enough time to ask them all. But like that kind of thing was on my list of like let's get granular and talk about how the systems are going to interlock and stuff like that. But there were just some broader strokes that we had to touch on.
Yeah.
But what I will say, when I asked them to talk about the sort of characterizing the RPG qualities of the game, which I think encompasses a lot of the systems and stuff that you're talking about. They talk about, or he talked about wanting to take a new approach to it. So it's not necessarily just the Odyssey systems transplanted. Gotcha. So that manifests in ways like it's not just the same old skill tree. There's still the concept of sort of amassing points and investing in abilities that you get, but he talks about wanting the content within that progression to be different. So it's not always just you like, well, I'm going to buy this ability on the skill tree and buy this ability on the skill tree, and instead think more with an eye towards like maybe how different abilities work together.
Oh, okay.
So like synergy, like a more synergistic approach to the way that you're getting abilities, wielding weapons, things like that. And he also talked about getting or like changing the abstraction around player levels. So it's not necessarily, well, this enemy is level 50 and you're level 55. There is a way that your power is sort of quantified
Yeah.
on the kinds of things you can do, but it seems like it's a little less what do you want to say, like overtly gamified in that sense.
Yeah, that would be nice because you definitely got a like in the last game you had like guys you come across, you're like, I just can't beat this person because they're just too high, and just a ton of characters that were too easy. It really seemed to like hit on either extreme, or at least that was my experience with the last game. So it would be nice to have just like rely a little bit more on my execution to determine those battles. I think would be nice if that's a goal. That's a great goal.
Well, and think of it this way too, and this is my interpretation of it. So I'm not saying this is like for sure the law, but my sense is like if you look at something like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, there's a lot tied into your level, like what your capabilities are. The gear you have is important, but a lot of it is just focused on what level are you. That determines a lot of like how much health and strength and whatever that you have. And it seems like the approach they're taking in Valhalla is more of that representation being an intersection of a lot of things, an intersection of the gear you're wearing, of the weapons that you can wield, of the abilities that you've invested in. So a little less just you're level 10, so you are this strong, and a lot more a sort of like multifaceted approach to quantifying your capability.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I think in the last game I really enjoyed when I find like a shield that gave me extra power to like punt people. Essentially, you're like, all right, I want to keep using the shield and use this power and make that kind of the central part of who I was. So I think more personalization as a character would be really great. Not just as like how you look, like you said, but how you play, right? Like that I want to have the giant hammer Viking. I want to be the like rogue Viking. Like those kind of things would be a lot of fun to explore.
I mean, to that point, one of the things that they are also talking about is the idea that your gear is something that you can grow over the course of the game, and a big focus on upgrading, so that like you can get new gear, but if you have a thing that you really like, I think their focus is on letting you use the same weapon the whole game if that's what you want, because you really like the way that it looks and the way that it plays and all that kind of stuff.
Very cool. Very cool. So
in some ways, I think in some ways that's a response to, if you're playing Odyssey, you know that like you just find a lot of like, oh, I have 10 blue tiered tridents in my inventory. It's like, well, what am I gonna like? All you do is sell them. Especially if you don't even use tridents, So I think that push towards having there be, they talk about having all of the pieces of gear be unique. So I think this time around, the idea is less about that kind of sort of RPG standby of you just getting an inventory full of weapons that you eventually just sell, and a lot more like Miller's talking about like making the weapons that you do get noteworthy and sort of worth investigating or experimenting with.
Yeah. So how do you guys feel about, I mean, was Vikings at the top of your list for a next AC game? I know there's always the often talked about kind of like Tokyo Asian styled AC that's brought up a lot as another one that I think is on a lot of people's wish lists, but where does this one fit for you guys?
It's a great fit. I mean, there's a lot of fun gameplay that matches up with things we'd expect from Assassin's Creed as part of a Viking storyline, right? I mean, you got the kind of people who are known as great warriors, like whether that's fair or not. That's certainly a way that Viking culture has been characterized and brought into popular culture, and playing around, like we were talking about before, with the expectations that people have there. The ship thing, I think, has become very tied together with Assassin's Creed. The idea of like having a ship that takes you around a big world, in games like Black Flag, and certainly Odyssey had a big component of that. And so that fits pretty well. I think I'm most curious about how they're going to tie it to the broader fiction, right? That's not something they've talked too extensively about. And at this point, this long into the franchise, you have to start, if you care about the franchise, you start really thinking about that, right? Like, well, how's this going to connect up with the ongoing story of what was going on with Alexios / Cassandra, that where things got left with that at the end of Odyssey. And there's just
I feel like maybe I'm jaded on that front, but there have been so many times in this series where at the end of an Assassin's Creed game, there's some sort of like what seems to be a transformative cliffhanger, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, wow, I can't wait to see what that means for the future. And then the answer is like nothing. The next game barely addresses it. Or
we ignored it.
Or we did like a spin-off comic book about that. And, but I like Miller, I'm sort of curious to see how or if the end of Odyssey really did introduce some cool wrinkles that I hope they don't just, leave by the wayside.
I mean,
but one thing that the team was excited about with this particular setting, especially compared to Japan that you were talking about, Andy, which they did not address specifically, but I think there is no shortage of games that sort of have that samurai fantasy in them, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that the team is excited about for this game is that games that sort of represent that sort of Viking fantasy are just,
there's less of them.
Well, there are way fewer of them, and I don't even know if do any stand out as being like, oh yeah, that's the one, that is the good one.
Not really. I mean,
maybe the Lost Vikings, that old,
but even God of War. I mean, it was much more interested in the mythology and that aspect of it rather than drilling into Viking culture. Yeah. There was that one kind of like melee focused sieging game that I think was literally called Vikings, right? Am I remembering that correctly? From
I think you're right.
10 years ago or something. But yeah, I totally agree with Joe. It feels like it's a space that can be pretty fresh for them to do smart things with, and they tend to, right? Like if nothing else, the teams that have worked on the mainline Assassin's Creed games, they do their research, right? One of the great things about Origins and subsequently with Odyssey was the sense of like, man, I feel like I'm in ancient Egypt. This is awesome, right? And if they can manage to do that both with the culture of the Vikings, but also with like running through a pristine England of the 800s. I mean, that's awesome. And that's something that I can be really excited about.
Yeah, I can't wait to ride on the back of the Viking version of Paul Revere as I learn Viking history through Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Did they indicate, because one of the things I loved about Origins and Odyssey was the mysticism in the actual worlds, like fighting like creatures and gods and that kind of stuff. Like, did they talk about that at all? Because I think Norse mythology is ripe with opportunity for that.
Yeah, I asked about that, and the response it's a little bit, I think maybe they were trying to dodge. He was trying to avoid getting too spoilery with it.
Yeah.
But in the trailer, there is a moment where you see Odin and and then like a raven flies overhead, which
or is it Odin, right?
or is it Odin, or was it a raven and not an eagle, or was it just the imagination of Ivor in the first place, right? I think what they are trying to do with it is approach it from the short answer is it is unclear to what extent all of that is going to figure in. But I think the team acknowledges that kind of spiritual element is pervasive just in the day-to-day life of the Vikings, and that simple things that happen just in the course of your life can be interpreted as sort of like signs or omens, and that Eivor is someone who believes in that.
One of the things I always liked in World of Warcraft, this is a weird reference, but because every once in a while they talk about a god or like a past, and they talk about the history, or even like religion, things like that, just in like a broader sense. And they'd be like, oh, remember the time. And then they would tell the tale, you know what I mean? And you get to play that tale,
Sure.
right? I feel like even if they don't do something following that mythology, that I feel like there's opportunity that they could go down where like, remember the story of Thor, right? You know what I mean? Like kind of thing, and head down those.
Yeah.
There's lots of room there for, right, like the way that things were established in Origins and Odyssey very much made some direct connections with the those who came before, who we now know are called like the Isu, right? That they were in a position of basically being the gods of ancient Greece. It's certainly not a stretch to think that they might be doing something very similar with Norse mythology and play around with the idea that either some of those same people, some of those same Isu, or maybe a different branch of them, had their own part of the world that they were kind of governing over, or that they had oversight on, and that some of those characters might be, part of that race of people that came before humans. So that's cool opportunities there.
That's a great point that Miller brings up, is that over the course of the 13 years this series has been around now, it's significantly demystified that mystical angle of it, right? So like now, any fan who sees that trailer and sees Odin there, it isn't like, oh, what's going on? How magical is this world? Like they've built a sort of pathway of thought that guides players straight to like, oh, there's some sort of Isu connection going on there.
They also,
anything having to do with the gods is related to that somehow now.
Probably, right? I think one of the other things that we haven't talked about that's kind of interesting about the game, talking about like broader mythology and assassins and Templars, is one of the few historical names that they've connected to this is the guy who was the king of Wessex during this period.
Oh, I love that guy.
Well, he's a pretty well-known historical figure, and it feels like they're playing around. And maybe, Joe, they spoke to you a little bit more about this. I don't know.
No, we didn't get a chance to dive into the history too much of this, but I think so. It's Alfred of Wessex who seems to be sort of painted as this villain who eventually becomes King Alfred the Great,
right? Because he brought he helped to guide England in some ways. He was ahead of his time a little bit in terms of guiding the society out of the Dark Ages to some degree. He was a big supporter of like literacy and research and all that kind of stuff. So he's kind of a, I don't know, interesting choice for a bad guy, because his history remembers him in pretty positive terms. But of course,
and that trailer does not depict him in very positive. He's just sort of this sort of sallow-faced guy in a dark room, just like
I want you to read.
Yeah. But I think that's, at least, I don't want to say it's easily dismissed, but I think that there's a lot of papering over that depiction that you can do with just the shrug of history is written by the victors.
Yes, totally. I'm sure that is a big aspect of what they're doing. But compared to, like you look at previous series villains like the Borgias, right?
From they were terrible.
Assassin's Creed 2. I mean, they were objectively terrible by any measure of historical reference. And the guy who, eventually became Pope, and he was just kind of just awful. So anyway, I was intrigued. I'm always get kind of excited when they make these setting reveals. It acts as somebody who's kind of enthusiastic about history. It becomes a place that I can then go like do a bunch of reading and learn about that time period before I play the game. And it makes the games a lot more fun.
Let me tell you, the Wikipedia page for Northumbria is about to get hit like it was never hit before.
Yeah, I got to learn about Wessex.
Well, I mean, I've said for a long time. I mean, I think the weird intersection of history and games is what I love best about Assassin's Creed. I don't know why I like it so much. I'm not like a history buff as big as you are, but I find it fascinating, and I always love like kind of learning something or kind of going like that can't be real, and then you Google it and you're like, oh my god, that's real. Which is a lot of fun about that series. So I hope they continue to do that. So we have some other things. So we have a story about this on the site up already. We have a ranking of all the AC series, right? Joe, you got in on that, right?
Yeah. I ranked them up. Well, with input from the rest of the staff, we have the 12 mainline games ranked best to worst.
Best to worst. That's all. Everyone always loves those rankings, right? And agrees with them 100%.
Yeah. I tweeted it out, and
it's definitely like our whole staff completely agrees.
100%.
Never argues about it at all.
Here's the funny thing about that, though, is when you have a list, even a list as big as 12 entries, it's like that is enough entries to ensure that no one will agree with the list.
Yeah.
There's always going to be one that's like, no, that is way too low and or high. Yeah.
I half wrote a comment to you that was like, this is wrong. It's fine. You know what I mean? Like I know Joe will just argue with me that I'm wrong and that this is the one that's better.
Yeah.
I'm passionate about it. I don't know if it's
I know. I just like to say I felt like Black Flag should have been higher on the list. Even though it's the most ridiculous of all the entries, I still feel like it is one of the most entertaining in the AC series. That's all I'm gonna say. Just off.
I mean, Andy, Valhalla is made by that team. I think you're gonna like this game.
I'm excited. I hope so. I just hope it doesn't have to like, oh, hey, look, here's a suit. I'm an assassin. Like that still throws me off so much in that one.
Actually, they in the interview he mentioned that it seems like, at least to start with, you're not an assassin, that you sort of like end up working with the assassins a little bit, like your sort of motivations are aligned at one point, but it's not like, I don't think you should expect that Ivor is just suddenly going to be like, oh, well, yep, I am a part of this order now or something, but who knows?
I hope he doesn't like go into some room and pick up the hidden blade and puts it on and like, yep, I'm an assassin now. You can do dives into haystacks from forever above. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm super hopeful. I think the direction the series has been going in has been great. Personally, I'm gonna throw in a little personal in here. I'm getting a little tired of the ships. I wish they would go down some different paths of customization and ownership. Right. Like I sometimes I felt like in the last game, I still like the ship combat, but I'm like, I feel like I've done that. I wish we were moving on. And I know that's probably going to be a part of this one. And I'm sure I'm going to like it, but maybe for the next one, maybe no more ships.
I think one of the opportunities here with the ship stuff, just to kind of like break it down, and this isn't based on any knowledge, it's just like thinking about the situation, is that the ships that they had in something like Black Flag, it was very much trying to get the fantasy of like the pirate ship fighting the pirate ship kind of vibe, right?
Yeah.
Here there's more opportunities to play around with the idea of the ship's interaction with land, right? I mean, the whole fantasy is like you've got your Viking longship and you ground it into the beach sand as arrows are flying in at you from the defenders of the village, and then you charge out onto the beach and attack. And that's different, right? Like that's different from what they've done with ships before, where any interaction with the land is always like, okay, well, where's the circle that I need to get into so I can hit the dock button, right? And so I don't know. I'm hopeful that it could be that they focus on that stuff rather than trying to do yet another iteration of ship to ship combat being the main thing that you're doing there.
And I think even if you look at something like Black Flag, so much of that game revolves around your ship, like in combat, but then a lot of the things you're looking like resource wise, it's a huge like marker of your own progression. It's tied into, like the ship combat and all that. It feels like it's such a more, from a system standpoint, is so much more central to what you're doing versus I think what Andy's talking about in Odyssey, where, and there are lots of things I love about Odyssey. I think that's a great game, but I think the ship stuff, they didn't quite know what to do with it. It's like they didn't want to make it central because they knew some people didn't like the ship stuff. So it just ends up feeling like this sort of bloated way of getting from point A to point B with some like afterthought combat in there.
Yeah, and I mean, like it was a very small sea, and you'd be like, really? There's 25 ships on this little tiny lake that I'm on, essentially.
Right. So I think to Miller's point, I think that if they approach it as a thing saying like, hey, look, you're a Viking, you're gonna need your ship. Your ship is an important thing. And if you don't like it, then maybe this isn't an Assassin's Creed game for you. Rather than I think what they tried to do with Odyssey is maybe try and please everyone a little too much. Like, hey, if you like the ship, good. If you don't like it, skip it.
Yeah, I love the idea of like the midnight raid, right? Like coming in the silent, the fog is out, you're in your longboats, you're coming in, you're like, I'm going to mess up some Englishmen today, right? Like that, like I love that kind of sense that you have going in with that. I don't know if that can play off every time. I don't want it to just be like just always running into big giant ships out in the middle of the ocean. I just hope they do it in a clever way. I'm with you. I think they can make it central and make it focused. But sometimes you just see in Assassin's Creed games where they use an old system and they apply it to a new setting and go, well, there we go.
We did it.
It works. So I'm that's just my own gripe, and I'm griping about something I don't know anything about, obviously, since they haven't announced all the details around that. But I guess it's just kind of an interesting talking point.
Yeah, I get excited about every Assassin's Creed game, basically, but like the combination of like the fact that this is in a setting that I'm very interested in, the fact that it's not necessarily completely reinventing the series play style in a way that Black Flag and Origins kind of did, that it has a chance to sort of refine rather than trailblaze on some things. I think that stuff has me probably I think this is the most excited I've been for an Assassin's Creed game just based on the initial reveal.
Yeah, and I love that they're refining it. I think the addition of more RPG elements has moved this series forward a lot, and refining that and making it a better like action RPG is a good way to go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys played another games. You guys played a lot of games. But by the way, check out our coverage of AC on there. Watch the trailer. Hope you're excited about it as we are. It's going to be a talker, I'm sure, for the next few months here on the show. But you guys have been playing some other games, and let's start with Joe. You have been playing Streets of Rage 4, which is just crazy. I mean, the Sega classic, right? Is back. And I never thought in 2020 I would be saying, how is that review of Streets of Rage 4? So Joe, how is Streets of Rage 4?
Man, it feels like Streets of Rage. It really does. Which, I think so for anyone who isn't super familiar with this franchise, like Streets of Rage came. Were you raising your hand there, Alex?
That's me.
So like this is just one of the classic 2D side-scrolling brawler series. It came after like Capcom's Final Fight, but this is sort of Sega's answer to the popularity of that genre. So they put out the Streets of Rage 1, 2, and 3 on the Genesis in the sort of early to mid 90s. And I even remember I remember the fact that or the concept of a Streets of Rage 4 being kicked around even when I was in like when I was in school then, right? It's like, oh, I hear they're going to make a Streets of Rage 4. So this has sort of been a phantom game, a phantom game for like 20 plus years now. But now it's actually here with a different visual style, but gameplay wise, it feels like a Streets of Rage game.
And that's kind of your good and bad, is that it feels like it's from the 90s, but looks like it's from 2020. And you get the good and bad that comes from that, right?
Yeah, it's so tricky to to talk about this kind of thing, because when you say it feels like a super faithful Streets of Rage game, that sounds like, well, 10 out of 10. I love Streets of Rage. I want to play more Streets of Rage. And it is definitely an achievement that the studios that were developing this game did manage to make something that does feel, I feel like it feels like a natural extension of that original trilogy. They do some really impressive like digging into the series history. They're really faithful to the combat design. They add some new things, but like they spend a lot of time making sure that if you know those original Streets of Rage games, you basically can't go 5 minutes without seeing some sort of nod or homage or something to the content that you know and love. So that's an achievement. That's good.
Yes.
But imagine if you're plugging in your like Sega Genesis Classic console and you start up Streets of Rage 2. Like, what are the odds that you're going to play that all the way through and then play it again and again? Like, how into that game are you in the modern landscape, right? There's just some element of it when you're aiming to sort of resurrect a gameplay style that is 20 plus years old without making substantial like changes to it.
Yeah.
It ends up just feeling sort of archaic. Which
or
again,
introducing people to what we loved about it back in the 90s, right? Like to make it feel new and old at the same time. It's very hard.
Yeah, exactly. So like, again, it's impressive that they were able to make something that does feel so much like Streets of Rage. But at the same time, that's just, it feels like a shallow approach to a modern game now. And after you play it once, the idea is like, oh, well, you unlock some more characters so you can play it again with some slightly different moves. And then you unlock more characters and you play it again with some different moves. And like, I'm not a game designer. This isn't like, it's not my job to, tell them exactly what they did right or wrong. I only know how I felt about the game.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to not compare it to other brawlers, like say something like Castle Crashers or Scott Pilgrim, that still have that fun moment to moment gameplay, but also weave in a sort of progression or persistence that acts sort of like that carrot on a stick in front of you that propels you through the content more, rather than just the desire to get a higher score or play on a harder difficulty level.
Yeah, just those kind of arcade kind of achievements rather than a larger growing as far as like within the game. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So I think the graphics look great. You know what I mean? I think that they've done something really well there to kind of capture that old style. So that's really good. So what platforms is it coming out on, Joe?
It's on PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. And it comes out on April 30th.
That's today.
There you have it.
I played that game. I played that game for preview a couple months ago, and the thing that I liked the best about it was how much I really wanted to beat up all the people I was encountering out on the street.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm serious. Like, they did a really great job of making the like moment to moment enemies just so punchable. Like it just, oh man,
when we
these punks are just asking for it.
When we did,
they're asking for it.
Yeah.
And as I knew you were reviewing it, Joe, I was just imagining you in your basement at home on lockdown, and I know you well enough that I'm pretty sure you felt the same way. You really wanted to punch those people, and then you did.
I hated a lot of those guys. Oh, and I should also say too, it's a cool thing. It has, you can see a video of this on our site, New Gameplay Today, it has 4-player local co-op.
Nice.
Which is cool. So you can hop it on that. I think it's 2-player online, but 4-player locally. So if you want to get, if you're in isolation with some other gamers, you can sit on the couch and play that way. And the combat itself too, I want to say, it has a real satisfying sense of like impact when you do punch those guys. Like the animation, the sound effect on that stuff. It's like in those short bursts. It is a fun little brawler.
Is it difficult? Were you able to get? Did you feel like there was some spikes and valleys or anything like that, or did you feel like it was pretty all the way through?
I feel like it's pretty approachable for anyone. So you can basically, if you want to, you can play through on easy mode first to just understand how it all works. Once you beat the game, once you unlock a stage, like you unlock stage select, so you can replay levels on difficulties that you've already beaten. And then that's a way, so that's a good way for you to sort of jump around between, between different playthroughs on different difficulties. And so if you hit a roadblock in one place, you can maybe go try something else somewhere else.
Does it have a screen flicker mode so you can feel like you're playing in the 16-bit era?
I did not see that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Maybe later.
That's unfortunate. Well, that sounds exciting. What score did you give it?
I was kind of torn on it. Like I said, it's one of those things where when it's good, it's impressive. And then when it's not good, it's just super boring and repetitive. So I landed on a 7 for it. All
right. So check out Joe's review on the site. Streets of Rage 4 coming out on all kinds of platforms, and it's out now. Another game that came out just recently is Gears of War Tactics, which Matt Miller has reviewed for us. And Alex is shaking his head because he has been playing it as well.
Yes.
And as you can tell, it's really hard to read Alex's face if he's excited about a game or not. It's just you're like, man, what does he think?
I
don't know.
Stoic.
He's a closed book.
Yeah, he really is.
Man.
So we'll ask him later what he thinks. So Matt, I would probably be guilty. I was like, why are they making a Gears of War Tactics? I certainly have said that out loud. It didn't make any sense to me, but look, I can understand when I'm wrong. People are excited about this game. I've seen a lot of people talk about it. I know people that have been playing around the office have really been enjoying it. What did you think, Matt Miller?
I was very happily surprised by Gears Tactics. It's I came at it pretty fresh. I think it's fair to say that while I wasn't thinking it was going to be bad, I had concerns. Right? It feels like there was a lot of potential for it to be a kind of just a bad offshoot that didn't get the attention it deserved to be able to thrive and be an interesting game. But the systems that they put together and the way that they've set that game up as a just kind of moment-to-moment, turn-to-turn experience is among the best tactics games I've encountered. It's really there's a sense of momentum to individual fights, even though it's a turn-to-turn thing, and they've managed to get some of that kind of bombastic flair that is part of the original shooter. The mainline Gears entries, and they've gotten that injected into the tactics genre, which is not something you expect, right? When you play some of the really good tactics games like XCOM, there's a sense of kind of maybe more gradual pacing to things that they've really fought against here. The sense of both from the narrative and the way they handle animations, the way that characters have, you have 3 actions on your turn. And so any given soldier has a lot of capability to move around the field a lot and have a lot of different abilities and a lot of different passive capabilities. All of it adds together to give this kind of like action-y vibe to things. And on top of that, then you add in some of those classic Gears elements, and by that I mean things like executions. They've made a big, the classic curb stomp or the chainsaw, right? Like you go up to you down your enemies usually rather than just killing them outright. And if you take the chance to approach a downed enemy and execute them, which often exposes one of your characters, you get a big bonus out of it. You get all of your characters get another extra action. And that becomes this huge risk reward dynamic of how you interact with the battlefield and where you place your characters. And then the other thing that they've doubled down on is not something that's like brand new to tactics games, but they recognize that the concept of Overwatch was something that they could really make a big element of the game, because that again matches up with something that you see in Gears games, right? There's lots of times when you play mainline Gears games, you come into a battlefield and maybe you're playing with your buddy, and he lines up on the right side and you line up behind a barricade right up front, and you wait for these hordes of wretches to charge over the hill and come down towards you, and then you just pick them off, right? And there's something exciting about that, of like, wow, there's a lot of enemies, and we really just tore them to pieces. They've managed to capture that here in a way that I think a lot of tactics games struggle to do, by having Overwatch be really powerful, where you're literally like going to use your actions, your available actions, to just be like, okay, he's not going to do anything this round. He's just going to sit there, and if somebody comes into his line of fire, he's going to take him out. So you do that with like 3 different characters all at once, and you create these very satisfying kill boxes, where in one turn you have 3 or 4 or 5 dumb locusts charge in and just get torn to pieces. And I see Alex smiling there. I think you know what I'm talking about. If you played just a couple battles, there's something that's really, really exciting about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, going into this, I shared Andy's sentiment of eye rolling, because I think they announced it alongside the Gears Pop game, right? Or pretty close.
Which is maybe not a great move.
No, not a great idea. So like, I guess I've been a fan of Gears since the first one. So like for me, I'm not a tactics guy either. So I just kind of forgot about this and checked it off until this year when I was like, oh, that is coming out, and we got a code. And I echo Miller's sentiment of how satisfying it is. For me, being a real first time tactics player, I love the balance that they've struck, at least for me, on challenge versus like inviting you to try out those systems, to get to know what's going on, to know the battlefield. They do like, is it called Echo, or where you can like basically assess everything out on the field, all the buffs, all the debuffs out there. And it culminates in this really like there was a couple of times where, I die and I get frustrated, but then like it's always like, I'm always learning, you know what I mean? I always feel like I'm getting better because of the systems that they've put in place. And they had, like Miller said, they have put those really satisfying moments, those kills, those brutal kills, that momentum that Gears is known for, into something like this that I think in lesser hands that wouldn't have translated. And sometimes they're very on the nose. Like I just did a night level where we went to a garage and had to hold it down like it's Gears 1 type of thing, you know what I mean? But like I like that familiarity. Everything feels at home, and I love that they've brought this universe that I love to life in such a thoughtful way. And like I said, I think in lesser hands, it could have just been a knockoff. It could have been Gears Pop, Yeah,
it's impressive that a first time to make a strategy game, it's not an easy feat to pull that off, is impressive. Certainly. So one of the weird things that's going on right now with this game is that it's only on PC. Why is it not out on Xbox?
Well, I can't speak to the designer's intent, but I will say that it does function especially well on PC. And I mean that in terms of like the mechanics of play.
Mouse and keyboard forever?
Yeah, well,
it's coming to Xbox, to clarify.
They have said that they're going to bring it to Xbox, and I'm hopeful that port is good. But I did try to play this with a controller for a while, just to kind of get a forward sense of how it would be on Xbox, and it wasn't as satisfying. I mean, I think it is a game that is because of all the different abilities and maneuvering around and taking different looks at a 3D rotatable battlefield, there were things about it that like using a mouse and keyboard just were better suited, in the same way that like, there's times that you play an RTS and you're like, I don't know how this could possibly be good on console, and then they figure it out. And I hope they do, but for now it's only on PC, and it does both look really great on PC, but it also they've put together a control system for how you just maneuver through the game, and you manage systems in the game that works really well.
So a surprise set of strategy games, because last week we talked about XCOM Chimera Squad that came out. So, kind of out of the blue. And then, this coming in, and I think coming in and scoring well. You gave it a pretty high score, Miller. What'd you give it?
I gave it an 8.5, which honestly, this was one of those games that the further in I played, I was happy that I did, because all of that enthusiasm that I have and do have, or I had and do have for the game, and that I think, Alex, from what you and I have spoken about, you're kind of in that space where you're about what, a third of the way through the game, halfway through the game, something like that.
Yeah, I'm on Act 2 now.
Yeah, he's in the honeymoon period still.
I at that point, I was like, oh man, this might be really good. And the further in I went, the more there were some things that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, that pulled me down to that 8.5 score that I eventually gave it. I stand behind everything I just said before, which is that, like, that sense of momentum, doing something interesting in the tactics genre, all that stuff is great. But I think they made some mistakes in how they structured their campaign. The difficulty curve starts to get pretty uneven. And there's a focus on side missions, which initially, like in this part where Alex is at, you're still kind of discovering new types of side missions. And it's like, oh, this is kind of neat. I like this new type of side mission. But you're going to do that same type of side mission like 10 more times with very little variation. And they also made those side missions, in many cases, way harder than the story missions that are connected to them, which feels like a strange choice. Like, you just, you kind of want the big story missions where you're advancing the plot to feel like those are the spots where you really, faced a big challenge. And instead, most of the challenges are in the are in the side missions, where they throw in a bunch of very strange modifiers. But these side missions, to be real clear, are required. You have to play them in order to progress the game. And so it slows that sense of momentum and adrenaline that the series is known for, and that in the early stages of this game it did well. And instead you're left in the latter part of the game feeling like, I just want to get through this. I want to see where the story's going. I want to see what's going on with the characters, because there is kind of a fun little story that they tell in some good cinematics and stuff like that. But the pacing feels off, and the boss fights in particular, each of the 3 acts ends with a big boss fight, and every one of them, I went into it at the beginning and I was like, whoa, this is awesome. I'm gonna fight that big Brumac, and he's got missile pods, and that guy looks rough. This is going to be fun. I don't know how I'm going to make it through this thing. And then 2 hours later, I'm still fighting that Brumac. I mean, it's some of those fights are really long.
Have you failed and restarted, or it's a single attempt to fight the Brumac that lasts 2 hours?
The Brumac was the first one, and that actually wasn't the longest one. But the final boss fight took me hours. No joke. Single death. With no death. I did die once, which then meant another another set of many hours, but it took a long time. And it again, I mean, I don't have any problem with these games being hard. It does have difficulty settings, so if it got too hard for people, you could always bump it down. It was more just the sense that, like, man, you're making these guys just in the name of kind of stretching things out. You've made their hit point totals and how many times you have to hit them just be too much for what felt like would be fun. So those factors together, by the end of the game, when the credits rolled, I was like, that kind of hurt things for me a little bit. But I don't want that to dissuade people from giving this a shot, especially people who are tactics fans who maybe have written this off out of hand. Don't do that. This is a cool game, and it does a lot of stuff that, if you like that genre, I think you're going to find there's some stuff here that you would wish are in the other tactics games that you play. It feels flexible. It feels fast. The character abilities are fun. The greater focus on storytelling and cinematics is quite welcome, I think.
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat.
Well, and to jump onto that point about tactics fans liking it, I would encourage anyone who is a fan of Gears, who has enjoyed the series and hasn't really delved into tactics games like I haven't, to give this a shot, especially on Game Pass. If you have a PC that can run it, there is something very satisfying about this game with its combat. It really understands the Gears universe, and just I think this is a really good point to jump into tactics games for people who haven't experienced them. Like I'm excited to check out like XCOM now and Kingdom Battle, Mario Kingdom Battle or whatever. So I think this is a cool entry point for people who haven't dipped their toes in the water.
Yeah. Well, excellent. I mean, I'm so excited to hear that it went out well. I will say this. The Gears world has always been impressive to me. I think they have cool monsters. I think they've got, armor and guns and places and a general fiction and lore that I think is super interesting and like leans into like making cool gameplay. Right. So the one that's always drove me crazy in this thing has been the story. It gets a little out of hand for maybe my tastes. But I certainly have been watching some of the video and some gameplay on this game, and I'm pretty interested. I've got it set up to play. I haven't got a chance to check it out yet, but I'm going to check it out as well. I'm pretty excited.
Go check out on our YouTube page. Leo did an awesome, who loves this game too, by the way. He actually messaged me on Slack and said, make sure you tell them I love this game. But he did an awesome comparison between that and XCOM and the pros and cons of each. And you should check that out. And then we have our video review up on it of the wonderful Mr. Miller's words and Leo's voice and pictures. So go check it out on our YouTube page and smash that subscribe button.
Great. Well, thank you guys for that. One last thing before we moved on, I did want to touch on a piece of news just quickly that this last week, PlayStation did finally announce some release dates for this summer. It's just to talk about the kind of number of games that are coming. So Sony has announced that The Last of Us Part 2 will now release on June 19th, and Ghost of Tsushima slides to June 26th, or from June 26th to July 17th. So those two games are coming. So that's good news. We're still waiting on a lot of news around E3 and the E3 announcement games. And I know Xbox has a lot of games. I think we've got a lot of rumors still swirling around about some possible announcements coming here very shortly on next gen that have been going around. So keep those in mind. We should have some interesting stuff, I think, to talk about here. And there's a lot of games still coming, even though I think the coronavirus has challenged a lot of developers in how they make games and how they get out there. And that too comes with, there was a leak for The Last of Us, which you really want to try to avoid because there were a lot of spoilers that came from that. And I think that's a result of trying to work from home for everybody, just like this podcast. So coming up, we are going to talk more games. We have Cork and Reiner are going to join us for Predator next. And then after that, we are going to have Kim and Dan. We're going to talk some Trials of Mana, and then we're going to do community emails. So we will be right back with more The Game Informer Show. It's going to be a great one, folks. It's going to be great. Welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I am your host, Andy McNamara. Today's show, this is the second segment because we have so many games. We just got done talking with Miller and Joe and Alex about a ton of games, but now we have another game that snuck up on us, let's say, here recently for the PlayStation, Predator. And yeah, exactly. And joining us to talk about that today is Jeff Cork. Hello, Jeff. How are you doing?
Doing great. Yeah.
Excellent. You surviving?
I don't know.
And Andy Reiner.
For a pulse.
Andy Reiner, how you doing?
Good. Yourself?
Surviving. I'm going to go with that theme.
Yeah, we're all breathing. I could tell.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And Alex, welcome back.
Thank you. Excited to talk about Predator. Little hunting grounds.
Little hunting grounds.
Yeah.
So this is an exciting launch this week for PlayStation, exclusively for PlayStation, right? There's no other platform.
Also on the
PC.
personal computer.
The personal computer.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
Came out on
Excellent.
Friday, April 24th.
Okay, cool. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so it's backing up a little bit. It's developed by Ilphonic, the guys who made Friday the 13th, the game. So it follows a similar setup where it's an asymmetrical multiplayer game. So in this case, it's not one Jason Voorhees against 4 camp counselors, because that would probably not make for a very good Predator game. This instead is one Predator against 4 members of the fire team.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I said it's set in like South America, so it's essentially the same kind of stuff that you would see and experience in the first Predator film, the Schwarzenegger one from 1987. So covering yourself in mud if you're playing as one of the humans, looking around in the trees as leaves fall, and you can see like the little shady thing if you're playing as one of the humans. And if you're the Predator, you get like the full suite of like his invisibility, the cloaking, camo, and you've got like unlockable weapons like his spear and his net, and like the thermal vision, so everyone shows up funny, you know.
That's awesome. So it's basically insane fan service for fans of the original Predator.
It is clear that those guys like the Predator. Yeah. In the same way, like the Friday the 13th game, like if you like Friday the 13th, it has so much ridiculous fan service there that you probably may or may not appreciate if you're not a fan. So it's great to see people that have like a real enthusiasm for the properties they're working with and, you know, working on those games. So like,
yeah,
they're clearly all about the Predator.
Yeah, it's funny when you watch any trailers or anything like that. I know you three have played the game, but like the second all the noises start going off in the game, you're just like when his shield goes on and all those other kind of things, or when you see his like his little reticule going around, it instantly hits all the notes.
Like I talked to the team last year at Gamescom when the game was first announced, and I got like a little bit of hands-on with it. And I told them afterwards, I'm like, not dismissing the hard work you're putting in, but it seems like you're starting off with like a real head start because you have all these you got all these sound effects that are great that everyone loves. You know, just like the second you hear the show when you go into like infrared, you're just like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm the Predator. You know what I mean? Like every Predator game has had that in there, and it's always super great. And so I will say, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say like playing as the Predator in this game feels really fun. It's super good. You've got it's nice because you're not invulnerable, but at the same time you do feel very powerful. But yeah, it's a really good time if you like to play as the Predator for sure.
So do you feel like you're just like meat at the meat market when you're playing on the fire team, or is like does it require good teamwork to take him down? Like tell me about what does it take to kill the Predator?
Lots of bullets, and it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt if you're playing against someone who's a bad or mediocre Predator. Like a really good Predator, it's like super fun and super scary, but it's a real challenge because, you know, they're able to like kind of jab at you a little bit and then run away. If they're like super good at it, then it's really hard to kind of pinpoint where they are. And if you're playing as the Predator, you have basically the goal of kill the people. And if you're playing as fire team, though, you've got like actual objectives. So you're dropped in. They're not particularly interesting or engaging anyway, but it's just kind of like, hey, there's a money counterfeiting operation, so find some evidence and destroy the printing press because, you know, you're the fire.
Of course.
team.
Yeah. Of course, that's what it is.
Or there's someone who's putting drugs and he's smuggling by putting them in dead pigs. So figure out what that means.
No way. Is it seriously in dead pigs?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's seriously in dead pigs. So, but it's basically like you start your mission as the fire team, and it gives you like the little briefing or whatever, and it's just basically you look around and find out like, okay, I need to go 400 meters that way, and you go there, and then you hold down square, and then you go to the next point. It's all basically an excuse to kind of draw out the Predator, right? Because you're going to these places where there's AI guards and everything, and you fight them and you create noise and everything. So that kind of like sends up flares if you are playing as a Predator, because you in your infrared vision, you can also see like bursts of sound also. It's visualized. So every time you're in those, you're kind of like, gosh, I really wish that those guys were using silenced weapons or stabbing people if possible, because we're making a lot of noise, you know.
So would you be disappointed when you played a match and you weren't the Predator? Was the excitement equal when you played the game, or did you just when every time you were playing the fire team, you're like, I wish I was playing the Predator?
I wish that I was the Predator if I was guaranteed to win every time, because I'm like baby. But like I think I'm a pretty good Predator. I'm not like the best Predator. So it's I think the biggest problem with the Predator too is just the wait times to play as that character are significantly longer. Because like you have on one hand you get to play as the Predator, on the other hand you get to play as Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, or Delta.
Yeah.
And they're customizable, right? But they're not like you're playing as Dutch or, you know, Jesse Ventura's character or anything like that from the movies. They're all just kind of generic guys and ladies.
So they don't scream out all the classic lines as you do this? They do.
They say things that are similar, like, there's references to, not having the time to bleed.
Gotcha. All right.
Kind of stuff, and you want to get to the chopper and that kind of thing. But no overt like cameos from anyone that you would know from the films.
So how bad were the wait times to get to play as the Predator?
The Predator, it really does depend on the time of day. Like, it's anywhere from 4 minutes to I'm giving up and I'm just going to leave. The one that will infuriate, it's just the nature of matchmaking. Sometimes like you'll get into a match and it's matchmaking still. And it's like, oh, I get to be the Predator. And there's like 2 of the 4 slots for fire team are filled and we're just waiting. And like a minute later, one person joins. So it's like, oh, 3 out of 4. And everyone should ready up. Then one of the people drops out, and then the other person drops out. At that point, you're just like, this one's haunted or something. I'm just going to try again from scratch. So generally what I would do is, like, after I got my fill of the Predator, I would just say no preference. And sometimes I'd be pleasantly surprised to get to play as him. But, like, even if you are playing as fire team, it is still super fun because, like, you're fighting against a Predator, and that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I did love that the explosion, the at the end and the laugh are there.
Oh, yeah.
That is
suicide. Yeah.
Yeah, you do that, and then he does his laugh, like you say, and then you can, if you get in close, go through a sequence where you, like, it's kind of like a matching game under a strict timer where you're trying to, like, deactivate his nuke, in which case then you can, like, claim the body for science and you get more XP. But by doing so, like, the second he activates that nuke, it just basically the entire minimap is red because you can't see the borders that you need to get away from. So you just need to book it if you would like to get out. Because, it leaves a giant hole. And you, if you don't start moving, are more than likely going to end up in that hole.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Reiner, what did you think? What did you like playing the Predator? Was it like, how was it as a fire team? Tell me something about your experience.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing as a Predator my first time, but I had a really good time, like, kind of scurrying through the trees. They make it even easier than like parkour in Assassin's Creed. It's just one button press and you're up on 20 feet up on the tree, and then you're just bounding from one tree to the next, and you could put on the camo and you're just kind of hunting, right? So you get this real nice sense of being this apex predator, that you are kind of lording over, these beings that you can annihilate in one shot or just one slice. And you don't know if I'm actually attacking Jeff or someone else. It's just a character. They move differently, right? Like, that's how the Predator or you as the player knows that I'm not going against AI. Like, that guy's hightailing it like a player would. An AI would maybe not move like that.
Yeah.
So you don't really know who you're attacking at times.
You will get like an icon over their heads
eventually.
Show up.
If they're not mudded up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then as playing as the players, you remember that iconic scene where I think it was Jesse Ventura had the Gatling gun, and they're just mowing down the forest. Like, they take down like the whole thing, right? Like, when they first see it. There's times where you have that where someone spots the Predator and pings it, so everybody on the team can see it, and then everybody's just spraying ammo up at the tree trying to hit this thing that's really moving pretty quickly. So you have those iconic moments that are done very well. So yeah, I had a really good time. I thought it was the idea was well conceived and executed on.
Yeah.
So did you win your first match as the Predator?
I nuked and I took out Ben Reeves, but Jeff Cork hightailed it out of there pretty quick, and Brian Shea. But I did catch Ben Reeves.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I consider that a victory. Yes. After spending the first 8 minutes of the match sitting in a tree, I didn't know what I was doing.
We were worried he lagged out of the game for a while.
I
got in your heads.
Yeah, exactly. I think I would have done better in our match, but the game kind of bugged out on me and thought that I was in a tree even though I was on the ground, so I was unable to do things like crouch or switch weapons. So it's a little janky at times.
Yeah.
Not ever broken or anything like that, but it's
Ilphonic definitely learned from their launch of Friday the 13th, because that was a mess, and this one is nowhere near that.
So like long term, is it just like a thing that you want to go do and play and it's fun and you kind of move on? Do you feel like you could really invest yourself in it? Well, how do you feel about that?
I think that if you look at the progression path and the unlocks, they certainly think that this is your destination game. I don't know that I necessarily have that long-term enthusiasm for it. I think it's going to be something that I will like Friday the 13th before it. I will return to it like every couple of months or so, just like pop in and play, like have a really fun afternoon with it, and then just move back to regular games.
Yeah, part of the problem is even if they change up the objectives, the maps are all very similar. It's just that kind of jungle setting. It'd be nice if they'd add stuff like, you know, the city from Predator 2 or an alien world from Predators, you know, just really give you something, a different look. Because right now it just feels like we're just going right back into the same thing.
Yeah. I'd be happy if like the humans had the ability to kind of be a little more tactical with defenses and set up traps and things like that. But so I know that was like, they're not making Predator the movie, the video game, but I mean, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, there is an extended montage where he's like rigging logs and doing some, and those guys have clearly seen that movie a million times, but seems like that's an element that I would love to see incorporated later on.
Yeah.
They need to make the Predator Battle Royale, right? Isn't that what comes next? No, never mind.
You would just start and you get painted by thousands of like, laser triangles. It's like one human against 99 predators.
And Alex, you played it as well. Did you have fun?
Yeah, so I had two very different experiences with it. The first being during my weekend playthrough where it was just me. Not that it didn't click, but I could just tell this, you know, this was good. I liked this, but it wasn't going to be part of my rotation just because like even when I had a good team, usually we weren't playing a good Predator. So it's like that the drama and the theater of that was kind of gone because they would just be running around flailing on the ground. It's like, well, no, you're supposed to be up in the trees. And so like, but then when we played it multiplayer for the new gameplay today live, that's when it started to click with me. This is definitely a game I feel like is best if you have a squad that you can play with. Because, you know, the team speak was fun. It's loose, so you don't need to be super tactical, like something like a Rainbow Six. And when you're playing a good Predator, like Jeff was 98% of the time, or Reiner was 10% of the time, you know, that's when this game starts to shine. So if you have a group that is interested, like Jeff said, there's a lot of love for the original Predator. So if you have that love for it, like this is a good game and a really fun weekend experience, I think.
Yeah, there's an experience that it has that is unlike a lot of games. Like say you're playing Overwatch and your Reinhardt isn't defending super well. At the end of the match, you can gripe about it to yourself, but you don't think like that guy wasn't Reinhardt. You could say he was that you know what I mean? Like it feels like they are giving you the tools to role play. So like the way that you approach combat in situations, like if you're a Predator and you jump down uncloaked and just start randomly flailing away at everybody, like I've seen this happen, it just completely ruins the illusion. You're just like, this is like the JV squad of Predators. He is not honored among his peers. Like this is no good. And it really does detract from the experience in a significant way because it just kind of pull the illusion away. You're just like, oh, yeah, that's right. This is just a silly video game. You know, but if you have everyone that's taking it seriously and doing a really good job, and like the Predator can do the thing where he mimics people's voices. So you have like someone roaring, like and saying like, over here, cover me. And you're like, all of my team's right here. Why is that coming over there? You know, it's really cool.
Yeah. We also had
like, I was going to say on the new gameplay today, it was fun to watch you guys just kind of like pick out who was going to be that. The private match seemed like where it was like kind of the fun was at. Like that seemed like that's where it was camaraderie. You could, when the other person was done being the Predator, you could mock them, you know, for their performance. Right. And then you'd be like, well, you do it, you know what I mean? And then you had the pressure of like, now I can't be a bad Predator. Right. I thought that was really funny. You know, like when you guys were all standing together, that's the part I saw. It was like, you're like, I think Brian Shea thinks he's in cloaked and he's not cloaked. You know, like
right there.
Those kind of moments definitely were very funny in that particular segment. But you had something to add, Reiner. I'm sorry for talking.
Yeah, even there's some fun as playing as the humans. Like we had Ben and I went to go summon the helicopter, right? We went to the landing zone to bring it in, and then all four of us would get on and disappear, right? And get out of the jungle alive. Well, we summoned the helicopter. I'm waiting for Jeff and Brian to show up, and then all of a sudden, like Ben just took off with the helicopter and just left us in the jungle, and that was like, well, that's it. Game over.
Watch us kill the predator.
Yeah. Thankfully, we took down the predator, but it was like, thanks, man.
We took down the predator.
Have a good life.
So Jeff, what did you end up giving the game?
Oh boy, if we're distilling it down to a number, the 725. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, it's a really fun short burst kind of a game, but I think overall it's missing some depth. I think that it could really benefit from.
Yeah, and I think and like we said here, like, you know, if you have a group that's going to play together, it's going to be a lot of fun, right?
Oh, yeah.
And like that it's just, you know, to your point, grading is grading, right? But that doesn't bring everything into the whole picture as far as the score goes.
Yeah.
So,
it's like $40 too. So like, unless you buy the special digital bonus version or whatever, you get it for $40. And if you get a crew of people that you know that are into it and everything, it's go for it.
Good times. Yeah. And it's definitely set up because the Predator always has to have a Predator versus in the future. That now we can have Predator versus Jason, right? It seems like that's got to happen, right? I mean, they had the two games.
Mm-hmm.
We mashed them together, right?
Yeah. If I know anything about the Friday the 13th license, it's like super smooth sailing. There's no drama there. They just say, go have fun in our playground.
I also like the idea of Predator versus summer camp counselors. Like what a slaughter that would be, right? Exactly. That'd be kind of fun. But that's exciting. I'm glad that the game is a big surprise. A lot of people are talking about it. So very cool.
My original headline review was going to be "Now do RoboCop," so I'm just leave that.
So if you're listening out there, we know you are. Jeff is requesting RoboCop. So there you go.
Just do that for me, please. Thank you.
So thank you guys very much for filling us in on the game. So we'll be right back shortly with Kim and Dan. To talk about Trials of Mana, and then we're going to do community emails. This giant version of the Game Informer show rolls on. We'll be right back. Hello, and welcome back to the Game Informer show. I am your host, Andy McNamara. Today's show is epic. We've already had big conversations with Joe and Miller and Alex about Assassin's Creed, Streets of Rage 4, and Gears of War Tactics. That was segment one. And then we went into segment 2, where we sat down with Reiner and Cork and Alex, and we talked about Predator Hunting Grounds. And now, in segment 3, we have the wonderful Kim Wallace. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I have my RPGs. They're keeping me company through everything.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
You like RPGs? Is that a thing you like?
Just a little.
Just a little bit. Excellent. Well, you know, I saw the other day on Twitter, you were like, I think I need to get a new chair. I want to get a new gamer chair. What do I do? And I know Kim, I don't know if everyone's listening, Kim might like a certain series out there. So can you show us quickly, Kim, what chair you did pick up there?
Oh boy, here you go.
Look at that, folks.
Oh.
Look at that. Fancy,
Saucy.
fancy. And that is not a paid product placement, by the way.
No.
That's Kim's hard-earned dollars going towards a chair that is, I believe that's Overwatch is what we call that game. So, and that's Diva, right? On there? Yes.
Best character, Diva.
You still playing a lot of Overwatch?
Yes.
Still, yeah.
I'm up to 900 and something hours in the game.
Wow.
Getting there.
Crazy.
That's nuts.
So we still don't have a release date for Overwatch 2, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Where is it? Why isn't it done, Kim?
We need new maps, though. Like, I really wish they would get on it.
Yeah, that would be nice. All right, joining us also this week is Farm Life. Dan,
That's
the
right.
Jacket Tack. How are
I
you
came
doing?
all the way from the farm to be here today, so I hope you appreciate it.
Tending his
I'm doing
ducks.
great.
He's
I
a
need to
cat.
get. I need some product placement for a new chair, though. If anybody's all right.
Yeah. So your back's holding up. Your chair's doing all
It
right.
is, but it doesn't look quite as comfy as Kim's awesome new chair.
Yeah,
I'll give you,
that's
I'll
I
give you
can
that.
recline this back. Oh.
She's
That's
just rubbing it in
unreal.
now.
I know.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's got reclines. Can go up and down. It's amazing.
And
Unreal.
by the way, that is amazing. Special shout out to all the heroes out there who are still working, essential
Mhm.
workers, getting things delivered to our home, especially that quickly. I feel like that just happened just like so quick for Kim to get a new chair. So thank you guys for everything you do to bring us those things. Just to make sure we get a call out to you guys. So Dan,
Hello.
I like your jacket today. Very nice.
I decided, you know what? I was getting used to wearing just that one for I'm like, it's quarantine, it's lockdown, whatever. I'm just gonna wear the classic red. But I'm like, all right, let's open up the wardrobe, let's open up the doors, and we'll get the outfits out there. Okay.
So I don't know, I try to read the YouTube comments every week. So please, everyone, make sure you comment about the show. Let me know what we're doing well or poorly in the comments, both on GameInformer.com and YouTube. But one of my favorites was during I don't know. So we talked about ducks. We made fun of Dan's farm life hat, and we talked about ducks, and we said that ducks weren't a farm animal. And then the Dan Tack Defense Force came. I mean, like I got so many emails, so much discussion. The biggest talking point for Game Informer, the Game Informer show as a podcast about video games has been ducks the last 2 weeks, by the way.
Yeah. You know?
And that continued, by the way. I know we're going to get to community later, but we had I tried to ignore them. I got a ton of email again about ducks saying they are or are not farm animals because you are a fan of ducks. And I thought the best thing was that someone said that you should turn into the Duck King and that Netflix should do a show about you. And I said I'd watch that. I just wanted to bring that up, that I thought, Netflix, if you're listening, I know you are. Everyone's watching the show. Dan Duck King Tack is a great idea for a show. Him out there farming his ducks every day would be thrilling. So
I like it.
Just want to get that out there.
I'd have to have some ducks first, to make this work. But I'm sure we can arrange that.
Do you
I
have?
want a Dan Tack reality show.
Yeah, that'd be wild.
That would be that's a terrifying prospect.
Yeah. Do you have a singing voice? Can you sing in country tone?
No,
Some
I don't think so.
No.
You're associating country with ducks now. I think that's not fair to
No,
ducks or country.
I was thinking the remix for Tiger King's song "Mallard Saw a Man."
Oh.
I also don't know that I can believe you that you don't have ducks. I think you're just saying that so the people that own your building don't know that you have a secret stash of ducks.
Yeah, I think you need a license for certain kinds of waterfowl and other farm animals.
I'm sure you do. And you're breaking the law there, Dan, with your what is it? Is it gaggle? What is it? What is a group of ducks?
I believe it might be a gaggle, yeah. Or is it a flock? Is it a gaggle?
Flock,
right, I don't
flock.
know.
Yeah, how do you not know?
Not much.
You want to farm them?
Not much of a king.
I want to hang out with them. I don't necessarily want to farm them. I certainly don't want to like raise them for meat or anything. My God.
All right. Well, like I said, the Dan Duck Defense Force. Thank you again. Appreciate the emails.
Okay, hang on. Just to clarify something real quick. I do want to move on, but it's not the Dan Defense Force. It's people that saying they're farm animals. There's a difference here.
No, there's not.
Okay. All right.
No, I'm calling it the Defense Force. I'm the host of the show. I get to call it the Dan Duck Defense Force.
You do.
Dan Duck.
All right, silliness. Oh my God, you probably have already left. Please don't turn off the show. Please.
They're hanging on every quack.
Are they? Okay, so hopefully you haven't left because we also have Alex Stadnick. Welcome back, Alex.
Hello. Third
How
time,
you doing?
just as fine. I'm good.
Great. So first thing we're gonna talk about more games. So you can write your angry comment about the duck discussion. Trials of Mana. Came out last week, if I'm correct, and is bringing back another Square Enix classic redone. So tell us about it, Kim. You reviewed it for us.
Yeah, sure. As you guys know, they had the Secret of Mana remake that they did first, and then Trials of Mana, we never got it here, and then they did the Mana Collection, which came out. So we have the original now and that you can play, but then they went one step further and remade Trials of Mana for a more modern audience. So, they added little things like a jump button in battle, I feel like is a game changer for how that plays.
Wow, a jump button.
It's
2020.
remastered, but like they did it's 3D graphics. They have a interesting class system going on. But it is definitely another action RPG with, as the Mana series is known for, right? The big boss fights are what it's all about. It's got tons of those, like creative designs and ways to play your character. But Trials of Mana is also a little different than like Secret of Mana, because you got to pick between 6 characters. So you have one that is like your primary character, and then you pick 2 others, and then they all they come together in the party at different points in the story. So it's got replay value. I'm actually going to start my second playthrough, I think, in a day or two. I know Dan already started his, but yeah, you have a little variety with the heroes on whose story you follow. And they all play a little differently and have different skills, obviously. So
Trials, or I should say Mana, the Mana series has had its up and downs, right? Like at one point, I remember when Secret of Mana came out the first time, I was like, this is huge. This is a whole nother, like, this is going to be a franchise like Final Fantasy that they're going to lean into and make new games and new entries on this forever. And that didn't happen. So can you tell us a little bit, what does the Mana series stand for? Is it that it's this action RPG? That's what it is at its core. Like, what defines a game as being a Mana game? Why do you, because I know you love Mana games and so does Dan. So what defines Mana games for you? What makes them special?
I mean, it is obviously that action combat that's really fun. The boss fights, just the world, everything's very vibrant, and you have the cutest enemies. Like, how could you get mad at a rabbite ever? Your little bunny. But they all the stories revolve around the Mana tree, and getting that sword to help like save the world. So I think for this series, it's always been noted too for its great music. Like, it is a great series, but I haven't really enjoyed a Mana game since, I think, Legend of Mana was for the PS1 was the last one that I thought they did a good job with. The series kind of lost its way after that, because in the PS2 era we had the horrible Dawn of Mana, which is not good, and then we had all those the DS game rather. So they've tried to bring it back, but they've always struggled a little bit with how to modernize the series for new audience, and then also make sure they fix the old problems that were there. So the Secret of Mana remake that we had was absolutely, like, in my opinion, awful. It didn't fix, you had characters who were just walking into the wall. I still had that happen sometimes in Trials, but not to the degree that I did there. So, and we must say Trials of Mana has very special voice acting that everybody is talking about. If you guys want to read Dan's story, he clipped some of the better moments that's on the website right now of the dialogue.
So bad it's good kind of thing? Is that what we're getting here?
Well, that's it's so bad, Andy, that you have to, I asked myself many times, are they doing this on purpose? Because it's just it is so bad that I can't help but think anybody was like, oh, this voice acting's fine. But I feel like Square also was trying to put these remakes out, kind of, drum back interest back up in the series and see if maybe they can do a new title in the Mana universe at one point. But it never with these remakes, in my opinion, though, it never really feels like they give it the full push that it needs. You kind of sit there and you're like, this game could have been great, but there's some things in here that are just inexcusable. The AI was a huge problem in Secret of Mana remake. You couldn't stay alive with any of them with your party members, and here your party members are better than they were in Secret of Mana, but they still walk into attacks, and you're constantly trying to have to babysit them, which I hate. So
I think that's the thing for me when I listen to your enthusiasm for Mana games, I get excited, and you're like, what defines it is its action, and then you're like, but I have to do all this minutia management that doesn't execute well, and that those two things kind of scare me off a little bit. You know what I mean? So you can overcome those. You think that it's that those bad experiences aren't enough to stop what's charming about the game?
yeah, I mean, I still have a lot of fun with the games, even when that stuff happens and there's a few moments of frustration. It's not so bad, especially in Trials, where you're just like, this is, with Secret of Mana, I thought it was really inexcusable how much my party members died. And now, because they're dying in just like regular battles. Here, I don't have them dying in regular battles. It's more the boss fights, because attacks will go all over, the screen that you have to avoid. And I would switch to my party member and put him, like, run him away from where the attack was going. But as soon as I went back to another character, he'd run right into it. And I was just like, so.
That's frustrating.
But the boss battles are so cool. Like, that's the thing,
Okay.
too. Like, you fight these, like, huge beasts, and they all kind of have their own approach to, having different elements that you have to, like, avoid in those battles or battle against. I think, for me, there's just something about that series that just has its hooks in me. And I really think it does just come down to, like, I like the world that they've created, and going through it just is fun. And same with, even when the battle system, like, pisses me off with the AI, it's not enough to be like, oh, this is, like, I'm never playing this ever again.
So how long does a playthrough take?
What did you clock in it, Dan?
First playthrough, doing all post-game content, including the secret boss.
Yeah, you did the post-game stuff.
Takes around 15 to 17 hours for a full playthrough.
Nice. So Dan, did you have problems too with, like, did those things deter you at all? I mean, obviously, if you're on a second playthrough, no.
I did 20, Dan, so you're faster than me.
So to put it in some perspective, Andy, these fights, the boss fights is kind of like MMO battles. So it's don't stand in things, reticles on the ground. You'd totally be understand it immediately. And yeah, the allies do somehow stand in it. But even playing on hard difficulty, they give you so many tools that you can just, basically you're meant to get overpowered in this game, really overpowered. You just smash through enemies, and it's really incredibly satisfying, actually. So I didn't really mind that the AI is kind of like, they're kind of dumb. They just do they just do whatever they feel like. You don't need them so much. They're great to, like, get the boss's attention or whatever. But if you don't rely on them for too much, that's exactly what you'll get, and you can just pound the boss into submission yourself. It's all good. It's all good. So the Mana games. The thing, this game, the voice acting, as Kim already mentioned, you should check out the site. I put a bunch of really crazy, hilarious clips up there. I've never seen anything like it, I don't think. not in 20, 25, 30 years of looking at
Let's hear an impersonation.
Yeah! That's a salamander.
Yeah. Do Charlotte. Do Charlotte.
That was my favorite.
Charlotte is the most insane. I've never seen anything like it. Like, bless the voice actor's heart. I don't even know where to start with that one. Like, the direction for that character, they made it so you don't even want to include her in your group, Andy.
And she's like she's the one who has all the healing powers too. So it's like, you really, if you don't want to rely constantly on items, she's good to have in your party. But God, you have to. I had her in my party, and I'm like, I had to deal with.
She talks in the most, like, infantile voice that you can imagine. It is
everything's with a W.
Mind-numbing.
But
crux of the Mana series to me, not only did it take sort of what we knew in the 90s as the Final Fantasy archetype and turn it into an action game, which was amazing, it also was one of the first big RPGs to include co-op and multiplayer, which we don't have in Trials of Mana, sadly.
It was in the original. They didn't put it in this one, which is kind of a bummer, because I wouldn't have had to deal with the AI then.
But I do think, like, as a remake that is that is, like, faithful to the original, I've had a blast with it. I can't remember the last time I went through an RPG and then said, well, let's go play it again with the other characters, because I want to see what that's like. Just immediately rolled into another playthrough. Like, I can't recall the last time that's happened. So I think it's, like, visually and the music is incredible.
That's how
like,
that all comes together.
Especially if you're not in the mood for, like, a giant sprawling, what we now have. Like, you make an RPG today, it's got to be like, whoa,
100 hours.
It's not 80 hours. What a terrible game. It's like, well, it's like a breezy 15. You get to do all kinds of cool stuff in those 15 hours. And, like, the combat is simple but fun. Like, you've got meaningful decisions to make in turning your classes. Like,
the classes are great.
A lot of RPGs in the 90s didn't have stuff like this, where you can, like, you're picking a class progression tree where it's like, well, I'm going to pick the, like, for instance, the Charlotte, the cleric. So if you start speccing her dark, she'll turn into a necromancer. If you keep her light, she'll be like the traditional, like, super healer support cleric kind of thing. But you can take the characters in different directions.
Oh, cool.
It's very like, it's very A to B to C game though. Like a lot of people when they think of RPGs are like, oh, I want to do like all kinds of other side quests and activities. That's not really a thing. You
Yeah,
can choose
there's
the
not
order that
side
you do things
quests. Yeah.
sometimes, but like you're in a straight line most of the time. And like there's something almost heartwarming about it. Like when you go to a weapon shop, there's no decisions to make. It's just like I would like the upgrade for this character and the upgrade for that character. There's no like it's very old school. But just like looking at like some of the things that were there, I think it's valuable. I think it's a really great game today, actually, and I also think it's cool to like look back on history and say, wow, this game was doing all kinds of stuff that like we don't even like have in all the isn't standard now, like night day cycles and associating weird things with that. Like you've got a character that turns into a werewolf at night, like that's a thing.
Kevin.
Yeah,
that's very cool. So one of the interesting things I saw when I read your review, Kim, was that your final line was, "This series has so much potential. I'd just love to see it fully realized." So the question is, do you mean this particular game, like that they didn't fix all the bugs, or do you mean Mana as a series, like where it could go?
Mana as a series, I don't feel like Square is investing much in it, because it is like, it's not their Final Fantasy, it's not their Kingdom Hearts, but they want to bring it back and they want people to like, latch onto it. But I feel like they always just kind of, like I said, this was an improvement from Secret of Mana remake, but they always just kind of come off with a lot of like little disappointing areas that you're like, this game is good, but it could have been great if they just, fix some of this stuff. Or like I said, that voice acting, Jesus, like
the voice acting is super, super atrocious, but like I just started having fun with it. It became like it's not supposed to work that way, but it's like The Room, it's like you're watching something and you're like, are you kidding me? What even is this?
Yeah.
Like at some point you're just like, should I turn it on to the Japanese dialogue so that I don't have to listen to this? No, you're like, no, I want to see how bad this gets. And it always surprises you. It's just like, whoa, where did this come from? Like there's an auto-tuned ghost. You got it. I mean, if you haven't, seriously, go check out the story put on the site. There's some clips there. They will change your mind.
So like Dan, if you could, I put you in charge, you're the director of the next Mana, whatever that is called, Farm Life Mana.
Yeah.
What do you do to move this series forward, to make it a big, huge thing that can compete with Final Fantasy?
Sure. I think in simple terms, straight up, you just make it you take what you got, you take the core, you make sure that multiplayer is a big aspect of it, and you turn it into a Diablo-like, more or less.
Really?
Yeah. That would be the way that I would do it. You make like 5 or 6 different class lines, different character archetypes you can take in different directions, friendly to single or multiplayer, but make sure that the multiplayer experience is there, because taking on bosses with your friends in this game is a big deal. And you could definitely do that. They have so many different environments they could use, and bosses already established, characters already established. There'd be nothing better than going out and instead of like, cutting through a line of demons, you go and farm rabbites. It lends itself very easily, I think, to sort of a Diablo style or even MMO. But I don't, let's be.
Would you like the Diablo style? Like you go back to the tree, you go back to the mana tree, that's your home base, and you go out and do some dungeons and come back and just create a little persistent world around it.
It's already got that kind of combat experience, really, like not too complicated. They could add a little bit more depth to it while they do this, but it's really all about your customization and progress through and the big fights through many different environments, one after another. Like you go from, the ice zone, the fire zone, the island zone, like they're all there. The ghost ship, they're all great. And they all have, just take that stuff, extrapolate it, hook up with one of those teams that wants to make a crappy Diablo-like and do some magic.
How about you, Kim? What would you do? What would you do to bring to give it what it needs to be fully realized?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of repetition in these games, and you are going back and forth to areas that you visited before. I would kind of like more variety there. I like how the action battle system is right now, because I like that there's this simplicity to it, but you also, as you go on, kind of just realize like, oh, if I do this charge attack here, like I'll cancel this boss's, incoming attack off or whatever. I think they could do more with the class system, honestly. Like right now it is very simplified. You get like your upgrade, and you can pick between 2 different routes of where to go, and then you'll get another 2 routes, whatever, later on if you want to change. And I think that's what's fun about it, is building those characters and having that. I would like them to invest a little more in some of the story, because the mana characters always have such tragic histories that are like really, really sad. Like Kevin, for instance, and his dog. Like it's just,
Spoilers.
I just said Kevin and his dog. You don't know what that means. But I
think we all get super worried when they put a dog in the game, because we know if they put a dog in a game, they're setting us up. I just like that's just a rule. If there's a dog, they always want to go after us.
But I really think like the series needs to continue to kind of embrace some of its classic roots, because I think that's what people go back to a game like this and they're like, oh, this is like RPGs from like a simpler time or whatever. Like it's as Dan said, it's very linear, which is not bad. Linear does not equal bad at all, but it does have that charm of like the old school stuff, but it's also making sure you like modernize some of the stuff to make it so you're not like have a better fast travel system, or make it so your AI can actually like not screw you over in a fight. So I just honestly want to see them they were like here with Secret of Mana remake, they went here for Trials, and I think they can go way up if they just gave it a little more. And I wish Square would give them more money, because I feel like that's what's going on here, maybe, because if you heard the voice acting, you'd understand.
The budget might have been a little low on
that
one.
I think the budget was low on it, and I think that's what shows through some of it, is like, okay, this is a good effort, but it could be great. And if their plan is to one day revive the series with a new entry, they have to start thinking about like what would work and what has worked from these remakes and what haven't, and what does Mana look like in a modern.
So what would you want then? Would you want them to remake another Mana game and do it better with a higher budget, or would you like to see them make a brand new Mana game?
I want a brand new Mana game.
Mana game.
I would love to see Legend of Mana remade. Like that's my next like. Oh, if they have to remake something, remake that. But even thinking that, I would rather have shut Dan. I would rather have a new IP. Not a new IP, sorry, a new game.
Right? A new game in the series.
Yeah.
So, like, with that in mind, right? Would you want it to be a co-op game as the same like kind of thing?
I think
bring
they
back
should.
That magic.
They should always embrace that co-op thing. It's something that, like I said, back when Secret came out, you just didn't see that in RPGs. And I think people like to be able to play with others, in these games. And taking that out always kind of, especially for this one, kind of a bummer. And I feel like that's something that has always been a big staple and that people have loved about it. So I think definitely you keep the co-op elements in. Yeah,
it's a big part of it. I will say, for how much... like I want to play Persona, but it's daunting to me when you're like, it's, 100 hours, a long thing. I there's a lot of appeal in you telling me it's 15 to 20 hours. It's fun. You point, you shoot, you run, like you get into combat. It's fun story. It's lighthearted in a cool world like that.
Yeah.
That seems very good in this kind of coronavirus time, like a good time for this game to come out, actually.
Yeah. If you play on normal and you don't do post game, you're looking at like 12 hours in and out.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. That sounds fun, actually. Unless I get frustrated with some of the AI, I guess. But interesting addition. All right, great.
Sorry, real quick. Do you guys have a recommendation? I know you said avoid Charlotte like the plague, but is there characters that you value the story over more than others, or that are more interesting?
We didn't touch upon this, but the story is straight out of 1995, so I would not play this game with a story focus. Okay. I think that's why. I think that's why I like it. There's just hit that button as fast as you can to get by the story, because there's nothing worth talking about there.
Okay.
This sounds like a great game to play and listen to the Game Informer show.
Whoa!
While you do it, that's what it sounds like to me. But I mean,
I agree.
I might be biased in that analysis. So let's get on to some emails. So thanks everyone. As always, podcast@gameinformer.com is how you send in your questions. Please, we love your entries for Kiss, Marry, Kill, GI Town, any of those things. We'd love to hear your input. What games you're playing, what you're enjoying right now. Please let us know. But let's get to the questions. Hello, my favorite GI crew. Some time ago, Dan Tack said that he had an interest in paranormal investigating. I also have that interest, but it isn't something that I've been able to do. Weird.
Yeah,
It got me thinking about how great a paranormal investigating game would be. Maybe get graded on how well you investigate, how well your investigative techniques were, and solve an overall mystery. What are some missing premises in games that you wish you could indulge in? Love the show and the magazine. Candace from Missouri. So, Dan,
Yes.
tell us, are there paranormal investigation type games out there that we should be playing or looking at? Where can we find paranormal activity in video games?
I mean, I just want to, like, if we're talking about reality here, the reality paranormal investigation game would have a lot of like safety prep and technical preparation. So it would be way focused on that. You're probably not going to see any actual ghosts. So keep that in mind.
Okay, all right.
Be like, I want shoes that could, like, if I step on a nail or if I fall down a sinkhole or something, you know, those would be things in an actual paranormal activity game. But if we're going with the ghost hunting theme here, you know, I think some of the stuff that is closest for this fantasy, obviously,
Yes.
would be like the Fatal Frame series, where it puts you in the perspective of the camera, right? So they're already kind of like tapping into that. There's no one that really is like ghost hunters. At least I hope there isn't. God.
There's always a mobile game, right? If you make that joke, there's always a mobile game.
Oh,
right?
sure there is. But like how interesting would it be in a video game, Andy, to like sit there for like 3 hours with nothing happening, talking to a little like recorder, being like, "Are you there? Can you hear
But
me?
I mean,
If
like,
you can,
that's
say
kinda-
something." And then you play it back for 3 hours. Would that be a fun game? I don't think so.
Well, I think the spirit, at least the way I took it, why I think it's an interesting topic, is that you could make an interesting adventure game, right? Where you need to go to this house, like a mansion full of maniacs or something like that, right? And look around and see like what's going on there and solve that mystery, right? I mean, I don't mean like go to the truck or the van out by the corner and pay someone $100 to make spooky noises while you sit in a room so you can act like there's ghosts there.
If you're paying $100, you're paying too much.
Paying too much. Okay, sorry. I mean, you know, like I'm just saying, like I think in the games, I mean, obviously games live in a like fantastic space. I actually think this is a good idea. I think you could have a cool paranormal activity.
You easily could.
Game.
I think a lot of games have explored that, like in different ways. Like Parasite Eve, the museum. I always go to that as one of the best ones of that. Like you've got, again, anything with Fatal Frame. The classic haunted houses, like, you know, Amnesia. Just sort of that. If you want to get really, I mean, let's from a ghost hunting angle, man. I want to see that game done well. It'd be tough.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if like you had to go find ghosts like on like a duck farm somewhere. You know what I mean? Like what that would be like.
My interest in ducks and farm life is very different from my interest.
Oh, okay, all right. But I mean, can you see that? Like the tension, you're in a dark room.
A haunted duck farm.
And like there's nothing going on. You're like, what is that noise? What's that noise? And quack, quack, quack. And like a duck comes around the corner. You're like, oh, it's a duck. Oh, it's a duck.
I think that game would speak to me. I'm not sure how much it would speak to others, but I'd be interested in exploring that.
I think Candace from Missouri would really enjoy it. So like you know, let's start a revolution. Let's get it going.
I actually do think like you'd have to fib it by you know actually having lots of ghosts in the encounter. But you could do that. Like you could have it be an econ-based sort of system. You'd go out with like better, you know, equipment, and you get points scored on by like how many ghosts you actually sight.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out how you make that exciting.
How about a paranormal?
Instead of just being like Pokemon Snap with ghosts.
How about paranormal activity battle royale? 100 teams drop down that have to find the ghost. You're not killing each other. You're trying to find the ghost. They're all there. They have their own like branded vans.
You got to be careful, Andy. You got to be careful, Andy, because they'll make that game.
That's twice now you've made a BR on this show.
That one.
Everything to do. All right. Well, thank you for the letter, Candace. I always enjoy ribbing Dan a little bit, as I think we all do. So. And actually, this segment starts with a lot of these are very Dan-centric. So we're gonna go again. So, dear Andy and the Informers, I'm a longtime listener and avid gamer. I game primarily on PC, though when I got wind of the pandemic, I immediately went out and bought a PS2, a treasure trove of retro games, 10 bags of Cool Ranch Doritos, and several liters of Code Red to weather the storm.
We're really going back to the
Oh man.
Yeah, we really are. Yeah, it really is. I
That's
love the setup
childhood.
there. You got to give him credit for that. He spent time on this letter. Thank you. I recently watched all the episodes of the Super Replay for Dark Souls, starring Dan the Jacket Tack and Tim Turry. Rip, though Tim is at Sony, so he does like on the blog and things like that. We still get our Tim out there. So shout out to Tim Turry. I was so inspired that I downloaded all the Souls games for PC, and I am currently rounding off the DLC for the second game. I listen to the show and other GI videos while I play every evening and want to say thanks for keeping this gamer sane. You're quite welcome. My question is this. With the announcement of the new Elder Ring game, do you feel that From Software will remain faithful to the game style of the Souls series in Bloodborne, or do you think they will opt for a more linear story like Sekiro and experiment with new gameplay styles that deviate from the current parry, die, repeat model that has served them so well? Thanks for all the laughs, and please stay healthy in this crazy time. Sincerely, your fan, Sean McLean. Thank you for the letter, Sean, and a great question. So we don't know much about Elden Ring. We know George R.R. Martin is involved. We know From Software is there. It's coming either later this year or sometime in 2021. We don't know. Given the coronavirus, it's probably everything's slowly sliding out. So I think wouldn't hold your breath on Elden Ring at this point.
Mhm.
But let's see. I mean, what do you want, Dan? What do you think? What do you know? Tell us about Elden Ring.
What do I think?
What do
I
you
think is what we'll
want?
use. What do I think? I think that in pretty much every interview since Dark Souls 2, Miyazaki is always like, "No, we're going way away from Dark Souls," but they're not, and that's great. And that's great. They have a really good thing that they're doing, and I think Elden Ring is going to play up. They're gonna adventure out from what we know from the Dark Souls format and formula, but I think it's going to be very grounded in things that we already know and love from Souls. Bonfires, Estus flasks, all that stuff. I can't see it not being there in some way. That's just how it is now. That is the From Software game design document, and it translates well to a lot of the other. So many other companies are like cribbing from their notes now to make these things, and it's just like I don't see them deviating extensively from Souls in this. There's gonna be like, oh well, this is new and this is new, and you're gonna be able to do this, you're gonna be able to do that. They'll have some new features, but I think it will look, feel, and play a lot like what we already know, and I think that's a great thing.
I mean, I'm excited about it. I definitely am. I hope that they get back to more the experience grind that you kind of left a little bit with Sekiro. I'd like to see that come back as a part of Dark Souls. But I mean, also at the same time too, isn't that a little duck? I mean, sorry, chicken of them to not try something different?
Well, I think with Sekiro they absolutely did. Like I said, they kept the core tenets of their sort of broad game design philosophies in there, but it plays and feels a lot different than a Souls games, even though you're still attacking monsters with a sword, right?
Yeah.
The way that you go about it in Sekiro is very different. And I agree with you there. I think that players should be able to brute force the content if they want to, like in a typical RPG fashion, which Sekiro was learn or die. And that was it. That was it. That was what you did. The other games, you're going to die a lot, but through, if you can grit your teeth, and you'll make it through no matter what.
Yeah. All right. So you're fine with them sticking to the formula. You don't care.
I think they're definitely going to expand on the formula. I think we're going to see, from the rumors that have come out, we don't know.
We don't know anything.
Right. Sort of an open world with horseback riding and all kinds of exploration kind of experience where you can go anywhere, from the very start. That is a massive, awesome thing. They got to pull it off. But I have a lot of faith in From Software, obviously. But pulling something that off with the Dark Souls philosophies and the gameplay philosophies intact, I mean, it's a slam dunk in my mind.
Yeah.
Pulling that off is going to be tough, though. Like, I mean, in one sense, you're going to have the Dark Souls 1 problem extrapolated to a huge new level, like where a player is faced with, where do I go? What do I do? I'm going to go left. Oh, this is a graveyard full of like giant skeletons, and they're going to kill me in one shot. What am I doing in this game? Why am I playing this game? How do I play?
Yeah.
Imagine that extrapolated to an entire world where it's like, well, I went north too far and there's a big guy there and he killed me. And I went south and there was a giant lizard and he ate me.
Yeah.
And, And that's it. That's my game experience. I'm going to shut this off now. But I think at this point, players are more. They know what a Souls game is like. They know what From Software is about. They're going to look into this with be like, wow, so this is going to be sort of a giant cautionary open world exploration where I could go anywhere and do anything. That could be fascinating, and it is different than the other games. But I do think the roots are going to be the same. You're going to have weapon customization. You're going to put stats in things. They're going to take away adaptability. That I hope take away stats that were popular in Dark Souls 2.
Yeah, it's funny. I do want them to do something new, but also at the same time too, I would take the same scenario redone and new skins that are fascinating and interesting to me. I mean, to some degree, you could say Bloodborne takes that formula and just puts it in a new world that's interesting, a new wrapper. Not to be set the bar that low, but I like that rinse, wash, repeat method to that gameplay is so good.
So I think Bloodborne's a good example. I think Elden Ring will actually deviate a little bit more from, the core. Like Bloodborne was very much a Souls game, even though plenty of differences, but also very similar. Best game ever made, but still very similar in that kind of respect. And I think we'll go a little further out from that this time. So
Kim, have you ever gone down the Dark Souls path? Have you ever tried it?
I'm terrified of those games. Tack's trying to get me to play Bloodborne. He can coach me, so we're trying to work on that at some point. But
it'll be fun
today.
No, I said
No time like the present.
We're gonna try to get me to overcome my fears and finally just do it. I played it once when I did I did video with Dan way back as a grind time video, and he made at the end I grabbed the controller and played a little, and it wasn't awful. But I am not a patient person, which is why I worry about these games.
Okay, I'd like to argue that not a patient person. You grind in RPGs for hours on end.
That's different.
It's different. Well, I see. I think
I win those battles. I can't take the rejection.
I'll say this: a lot of people, and I we've gotten a lot of mail like this recently, where people have been scared of Dark Souls, like they've been intimidated, and they've gone down that path. And almost every one of the emails we've received have been a positive experience. And I have the same one. I was certainly like, I don't know. Dan bothered me, and I got into it, and I loved him. Now that said, Sekiro's definitely stands out. Sekiro is its own level of challenge that's different. I would not recommend that as your first take on that. But the other games have a certain charm. They definitely, they want to punish you, and you have to take it, but you can overcome, and it does have its own interest. So I'm just saying, Kim. Go for it.
And doesn't it feel great when you do overcome things?
Oh yeah,
it does.
That's the core loop there. And I do caution against Sekiro, especially for first time From Software player. That would be the last one that I would recommend initially. It is so unforgiving, and they're all unforgiving, but there are degrees, right?
Yeah, there are degrees.
It's brutal at times in Sekiro.
Yes, yeah, it can. It definitely can be.
Yeah.
Dan always laughs because I'll play Neo, but I won't play Dark Souls.
Neo is definitely at least as hard as any of them. I mean, if you can handle Neo, you can board very easily. Actually, should be a stroll in the park.
Yeah. How about did you play Star Wars, Kim?
Yes.
Yeah. You got the basis, right?
Souls Light.
Yeah, Souls Light. Yeah.
And it's like I tell everyone, Bloodborne is the perfect starter one because it is the easiest one out of all of the Souls games. Once you get past the beginning.
Yeah, the beginning is brutal.
There's a pretty rough onboarding there, which the next time I get Miyazaki in a room, I want to ask about why the difficulty was so front-loaded in that game.
He loves giving the pain. I think it's just a thing. He likes giving people pain.
He can give the pain at any point in the game.
But he just wanted to get it there out of the gate, so people are like, "This is what you can experience."
I've never figured that out. Why it's so it has it has a brutal start, but once you get into it, you can groove pretty well with it.
It's funny. I wish I had a save that was like 4 hours in, just past that brutal beginning, because that game for me, I just remember being like, I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. I hate that guy. I hate this walk. I hate everything about this. And then eventually I kind of kept grinding. And I even did a couple of things where I was just doing laps. I literally set up myself a course where I was like, I'm going to kill these guys, go, all right, save, do it again. And like I had a lap where I was just grinding experience, and then I got through that. And after you kill that guy, I was like, if the next level's like this, I'm gonna quit this game right now. And then it took off like a rocket. At that point, you just like it was like how is this the same game? And that was so fun. But you gotta climb that mountain to get there. But really fun for a long time after that.
Definitely.
Hello, GI crew. There are a lot of times in high school where my emotions would get the better of me, or would be in just such a funk. And I hear you there. I didn't want to play anything, but there was always a couple go-to options where they would help me get right out of it. A Link to the Past, Little Big Planet, or even just a simple game of Tetris to get me focused can always at least lift my spirits. If not, cheer me up. Are there any go-to games you guys have in your lives to rely on when you're in a funk?
NHL.
So I think Kim has an answer for that.
NHL and Overwatch are what I call comfort games. I can play them whenever. But also, I actually just wrote a piece in our latest issue of the magazine. During this crazy time we've had, I started playing a lot of simulation games, and I really got into. I went back
Simulator?
Well,
sorry, that was a bad joke.
Yeah.
You're gonna love my answer when we get to it.
Yeah. But I played a lot of Sims. I went back to that, and I also went back to. There's a game called 2 Point Hospital, which is a spiritual successor to the Theme Hospital game. And you think that the last thing I would want to do in my life is manage a hospital, but for some reason, I felt like this sense of like power and control because I can make everything go right in that hospital, and I can stop the spread of any illness or disease. So I just got really into it.
That's awesome.
Animal Crossing as well, right? Like just chilling, fixing your island up, and inviting friends to go see it is just very cool and relaxing. So those are kind of my picks there.
How about you, Farm Life?
So this is going to be. I've actually talked about this game on the podcast before. It's a game called Farm Together. All right, this is a game that is the most anti-Dan game you could never think of. There's no fail state. There's no like min-maxing. There is no way to lose. It is a game where you go and farm, and you can bring your friends on your farm, and you just hang out with your friends, and you plant crops and catch fish and play little games. It's like Animal Crossing, but with way better online functionality. You literally just sit there and like, hey, I just fed the pigs and the chickens and the
oh,
the
cool,
ducks.
Man, I got the ducks. Yeah.
The Farm Life guy picks a farming game.
Yeah,
It's a very Zen, like it's my online Zen garden. Okay. Instead of moving the little rocks around in the sand, I just go on there and I hang out with the digital animals. It's very relaxing.
How about you, Alex? You got to go to get you out of a funk?
I've talked about my relationship with Animal Crossing during this. I think it's mainly I go where my friends are going, just because that social aspect is so important for me for games. And recently that's, it's been Warzone. It's usually a Call of Duty or a Halo. But recently we've been playing a lot of Diablo and Torchlight on Switch, and we just hop on Discord, and like, especially with Torchlight, it's relatively mindless. So we can talk about, the day and what's been going on. And it's still fun though. Diablo co-op is awesome, but it is also like, we always have to up the difficulty just because we're running through stuff so easily. But yeah, just anything I can just kind of be with my friend group with is what I've been gravitating to. I also really gravitate towards movies when I'm in like anytime I've had a breakup or, an unfortunate situation in my family. Those are usually movies are what I gravitate to more than games, but I definitely have those games.
Yeah, the box of tissues, the gallon of ice cream.
Yeah. And then just watch Uncle Buck. Yeah.
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 Old Buck Melanoma.
Moldy Russell's Ward.
I love Uncle Buck, by the way. I'd just like to point out that's a classic that I don't know everyone knows, but I'm a fan of that one.
Yeah. It's underrated.
It is underrated. John Candy was a treat. For me, I have a weird one that I don't talk about too often, and that is Picross.
You're one of them.
I love Picross. it's funny when the first game came out, and this is in the 90s, I was in a band and we used to travel in a van a lot, like around town. And I played Picross in that van, smelly musicians with gear going from bar to bar. Picross was where I went to find solace. And I've loved that series ever since. It's so great. It's not a classic game, you know, it's a puzzle game, but I love it. Like if you've never checked it out, I highly recommend it. They just came out a season 4 Switch. It's good times. But that's one that I definitely turn to. And I'm with you, Alex. I like spending time with my friends, whether I'm good or bad. I was playing even some Warzone just last night. It's just kind of, I know it sounds crazy when the world's upside down and everything's wrong, that going and playing a stressed out battle royale with machine guns and, you know, campers and all those other kind of things that gets a little out of control, but it does have its charms.
Yeah.
And I would like to bring up, I think that's crazy with no sports out there, Kim. I mean, have you been still playing NHL?
Okay, first off, I miss hockey very dearly. But my stressor in my life was to go home and watch a game. And I haven't been able, I wear my Blackhawks attire every time there's a game, but I have all my Blackhawks attire is like not coming out right now because of that. But I do like playing the GM modes that they have in NHL. So you build your team, you make the trades that you need to do, keep within budget. And so I can bring my own team to a Stanley Cup. And that way I can start a season and I can see it finish. And there's something that like is very gratifying about that right now when that's not what's going on. So I'd say almost play it more just because it's like, I got to get my hockey in some way, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I mean, because, you know, unlike the real season where the Blackhawks would be struggling again, you can have them go on and win the Stanley Cup.
I'm going to rebuild them, which they need to do. That's why, like, I can go in that game and rebuild my team as GM and make the trades I need to, get rid of the bad contracts. It's fun.
Well, I mock you, but the Wild have been playing just as poorly. You know, it's been
no.
It's been
the
rough hockey.
The Blackhawks have been worse. So that's where we're at right now. Heyo.
I thought about
That
talking stuff, but yeah, you have those championship rings over us. So.
Yeah, they have a lot of, and the Blackhawks just crushed us for those years when they were on fire. I mean, it wasn't even close.
Yeah.
Let's get to this next question. So, hey, Andy and the McNamara's. I've listened to every episode since somewhere about 9 months before Helgeson stopped hosting, and I supremely love the show. Keep it coming. First of all, wow, that is a long time, especially with, as we noted earlier, our 500th episode is next week.
Wow.
That's crazy.
We're throwing a party. Everyone's invited.
No, we're going to do a podcast in our homes. That's what we're going to do.
What about both?
I mean, you can wear a party hat instead of your farm life hat.
Oh, you don't. If I'm on, you don't even want to know what I'm.
I should get back on track. Somehow, in all that time, I've missed the fact that Mr. McNamara and I have basically the same taste in games. That's amazing. You have such good taste in games. This has been immensely helpful in choosing my quarantine playlist, but now I ask for more help. I absolutely adore Metroidvania games. They're 90% of what I play, not counting WoW and Destiny. I like this guy.
Did you write this email?
I did not, but
he totally wrote it.
Good taste. Good taste. Hilariously enough, as far back in my 31 years of life that I can remember, I don't think I've ever played a Castlevania game. Having just binged through the whole Netflix show with my wife, I'm kind of dying to get more of that universe. I want to get started with some good side-scrolling Castlevania, and that still holds up somewhere with modern controls and feels. I love Ori, Hollow Knight, Dead Cells, but Bloodstained just didn't feel right. I can't put my finger on it. Kind of clunky. I have a PS4, PC, 3DS, and Switch. Please help me fill in this hole in my gaming resume. Bentrick. P.S. My birthday is May 2nd, so if you have time to read this email, it's the rules. So, I did that wrong. So if you have, but happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
You with the greatest taste. Happy birthday, Bentrick. Castlevania. You guys Castlevania fans? I know my Castlevanias. Not all of them, but I know a fair amount of Castlevanias. Dan?
Well, Andy, I think your pick here is the one that takes. I mean, this is
You guys you're the same person.
A special pick for a special birthday boy.
Exactly. So I think if you haven't played Symphony of the Night, you need to play Symphony of the Night.
Yeah.
It is the game changer. It's where the Vania in Castlevania comes from. Is Symphony of the Night. You really need to check that out. I do have some weird choices that do not match your systems that you request here. I have a weird spot in my heart for Simon's Quest on NES.
No, I mean, I like that game a lot too, but it is not the game to recommend to this man.
It is. It is. I think it is. It is a weird game, and it's not quite a Metroidvania yet.
It's
and it's
not even a Castlevania game, really.
It's not even a I know it's its own land, but I loved that game, and I think it's a great one. I recommend that. And then I know this also doesn't fit your options, but Aria of Sorrows is another great one that you should definitely play. So I throw those out there. But Dan seems upset. What would you like to add?
You know what? I really like Simon's Quest too. It's just not a Castlevania. It's the weird one, right? It's like the Zelda 2 of Castlevania.
But I like it. Can I not?
I do too. But it's like the guy just wants a Metroidvania.
No, listen. This is a guy with good taste. He has good taste.
All right.
Let's get this straight. He obviously, with his WoW and Destiny and loving of Hollow Knight, Dead Cells, I like this guy. He's got good taste. He will understand.
I get it.
Castlevania.
I kind of like this. I kind of like this all in on the Simon's Quest.
I'm all in on it. And
I think you'll like it. We'll see.
Let's figure out a way for him to play and get back to us to let us know.
Yeah, so I said he has to get back to us.
Yeah.
So that's what that's our request. We read your birthday. It's out there. Go play Castlevanias and let us know what you think. Yeah. But Symphony of the Night's the best one. I'm very clear. I'm just saying Simon's Quest is a weird, funky game that's really...
It is a weird, funky game.
You don't like Super Mario 2 either, do you?
Hey, I played so much Simon's Quest. I love Super Mario 2. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I played more Simon's Quest than I think I did of any Castlevania game till like the Symphony of the Night era.
Then why are you arguing with me?
Because it was like the only one I had access to, I think, until the SNES one. So I didn't even know what that game. I didn't even know Castlevania was a series when I was playing Simon's Quest. So I was like, "What the hell is this game? Oh, it's nighttime now. What the hell is going on? What even is this game?"
Well, I should point out the original Castlevania on NES is also great, and Super Castlevania on SNES is also a classic. I never really liked the newer like 3D ones. I never really was into that. I like my Castlevanias 2Ds, as far as where they're at. So. Great question from such a brilliant mind. Wow, such a brilliant mind.
I like this.
So we're gonna go on to GI Town now. We do have some other questions that we're gonna get back to the end in kind of the comments section where we kind of revisit some other things. So we're not done answering your emails, but we're gonna kind of break it up a little bit. So Andy and the GI Townies, I recently finished listening to the last podcast and it stuck in my head what Leo said about possibly having a better job for a certain hero named Link. By the way, this email's from a couple of episodes ago. I just flung it out. So this was not a proper recent reference, but we always talk about Link on the show, so you're actually pretty safe in that assumption. So as it turns out, GI Town is in desperate need of hunters to go out and conquer monsters, beasts, enemies, etc. But it is sadly very low on guns and ammo. However, having an axis of arrows, we must now call upon our top 5 archers. Go. Love the show. Jake from Indianapolis, Indiana. Kim is fast. She's like on Jeopardy, that person that's sitting there like pounding the button and like the button's not on yet, and they're just like, go.
We need to give Aloy her due. Best girl.
So does anybody know any archers? I'm just kidding. Yeah, of course. We'll put down. All right, great. That is a great choice. Horizon Zero Dawn. For anyone who doesn't know who we're talking about, obviously one of the greatest, most recent bow-based experiences. But Kim, you might have another one for another game that you might be sitting on.
I hate Hanzo, but yes, Hanzo would count. Because, well, I don't hate Hanzo when he's good and he's on my team, but he does annoy me on other teams. That's all. So if he's on my team shooting things down, that's fine. Hanzo can go in there.
Hanzo can go in there. All right, so Hanzo is a good one. I mean, he's a fun one to play.
Yeah.
But there's lots of archers out there. I feel like we need some additions. Alex, you look like you have a knowing look on your face.
Maybe it's just because I miss the studio so damn much, but Crystal Dynamics Lara Croft, I think is a good one for that one.
That was a real good pick.
Yeah,
I'm for it.
Yeah, she's a bad. I can dig it, and I miss the studio.
I just did too. Now that you bring it up, I was like, I immediately when you said studio, you know what popped in my head was Laura.
Yep.
And I do miss the studio too, especially because I don't get to see you guys when we talk.
Yeah,
we have this craziness. I'm stuck
at
home. You're stuck at home. We're all stuck at home. So, yeah, studio. Good point. I'm glad you didn't say the Fallout guy because I would have been like, that's not.
He's my favorite archer.
He doesn't have an archer.
This is like a deeper dive, but Yukari from Persona 3, she's bad.
Dan?
I'm trying to think of what's like the canonical archer from like a Final Fantasy game, but I'm not. There's got to be one, right? I mean, come on.
I mean, he did mention Link.
Yeah.
Well, I know I didn't want to.
But Link, I don't want Link in
You think
here.
that's too easy?
I don't want Link in here.
You don't want Link in here?
He's just like Link is more of like he's not. You think of Link, you don't think archer immediately, right?
Yeah.
We can use him. He does a lot of archery, but he's not an archer.
Yeah.
That's my logic here.
Okay.
No, we could take him if you want. He's a good addition, but he's
what about like
bring it up?
What about like Pitt? He's not really an archer, but
yes,
he has the bow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pitt is perfect. Pitt's an archer.
Okay.
That's
like
all
Pitt.
we do in that game is shoot arrows.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
Pitt's an archer.
Yeah.
He meets the definition for me. And
what about Kid Icarus?
That is Kid Icarus.
Yeah.
That's what we just picked.
Oh, I was looking at something else. Sorry.
We got
That's what I get for clicking and looking at it.
Speaking of, I wish they'd make a new Kid Icarus game. That's another one. I really liked Kid Icarus. When I played Simon's Quest, I also liked Kid Icarus. Take that, Dan Tack.
I liked Kid Icarus, but I have no faith that they'd do anything right with it today.
The last one we got was the DS one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, let's not.
Hang on. I want to derail this right now for like 3 seconds. What do you want in a Kid Icarus game, Andy, today? Do you want to just and you could say just like straight retro if you want?
I would go straight retro. Yeah, I would go straight retro, same old style. Like, just I don't think it has to be super complicated. And by the way, too, I don't even know that I think sometimes things that are just like simple, like on Switch, that are just fun, like arcadey kind of like games like that. I don't need persistent world, a bunch of stuff to be built around it. Just bring back. I mean, Pit. I think it's funny because I think more people know Pit from Super Smash.
Yep.
Than do
probably yes.
The game that he comes from, right? And like the kind of like just the charming simplicity of those NES games in that era. So I think that would be a cool opportunity for people to understand why they like him in that space. So
do you think if I sat you down with Kid Icarus, the original title right now, you'd be like, this is charming simplicity, or would you be like, F this game, I hate this because it's, hard as balls?
It's hard. I don't, it's kind of hard to say how I would do now. I mean, all those old games feel a little sloppy, right? Mm-hmm. Like they all have a little bit of slop to them. That's just kind of just the way the controllers and everything have improved over the years, obviously better CPUs, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know. It's hard to say. It's tough to judge because I'm going off on a tangent here, but like, our lives as journalists is filled, as game people. We have so many games like at our doors at all times, which I thought was funny when that guy has to really like, when you have a funk. And I get, by the way, I'd like to point out, I have game funks. Sometimes I finish a game and I get like remorseful, like I miss it. I did it for Ori. I just did it for Doom Eternal, which I beat this last weekend. I beat it and I went like, I like Doom Eternal. What am I gonna do now, right? And like I watched a movie with the tissue and the ice cream because I was like, Doom Eternal, I miss you.
John Candy, give me a hug.
Because it was just like I get that way and I get in that funk and I have to try to find things to get me out of the funk, and like sometimes something simple like that, a blast from the past would do that. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I like Trout. It was not like a call out to say that your decision wasn't correct. It was more of like, I'm genuinely curious to how that game would feel today, like to the point where I want to try to play it now.
Yeah, and I think too, you could fix the graphics obviously a little bit. You know what I mean? Like it could use a little help that way. but it was
We
fun.
have to really see what an eggplant wizard looks like. We have
Exactly.
to visualize that.
But Pitt, great archer. We still
Archers,
need
yes.
more archers.
That's a
So
good
we've
one.
got let's get everyone back on track. We've got Aloy, we've got Hanzo, we've got Laura Croft. Who's that? Akari from Persona 3 and Pitt are the things here. And Dan says no Link because he's not an archer. Like everyone to know that. Send in
We
your
can
emails
have-
about how Dan says Link's not an archer.
Is that?
Put that in.
You know what? I'm saying it. He is.
Put that in your duck and smoke it. All right.
Get ready for these YouTube comments, Andy.
All right.
They're coming.
Link's not an archer, and ducks are farm animals. Take it.
So do we have any other archers? Come on, panel.
There's got to be some so obvious ones that we're missing. This happens every time.
It happens
wait.
every time.
Varric, doesn't he have Bianca bow and arrow from Dragon Age? Let's see.
He's not an archer.
I'm gonna go with Varric.
I love that. Okay, tell you what. If we are googling now, we've lost all
Hey,
hope.
I'm just making sure I didn't say something that wasn't true. But yes, Varric.
We can. You know what? If we need to put Link on the list, he should.
No, I think the charm of this list is that we always miss things and that someone can correct us. It's an opportunity for the community to go idiots and to show that it's hard to come up with lists sometimes.
No,
we don't prep these. We come in and we do them. We doing it live. That's the way we do it. That's meant to be kind of what we remember and supposed to be a little bit about reminiscing. And if we only get to 5 archers, then we only get to 5 archers. And if you want to say Link's not an archer, then that's up to you, and you have to live with that for the rest of your life.
Forever.
So, for GI Town, when we need supplies, when we need beasts conquered, enemies, monsters, when we are out of guns and ammo, we send out Aloy, Hanzo, Laura Croft, Akari, and Pitt to protect our lovely town.
I think it's
What a
good
town.
list.
It's a good town.
crew. That's a good crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good crew. Yeah, it's a good crew. Especially too, because Laura, I miss the studio.
Shout out
Studio.
to my girl.
Yeah. And everyone who's listening to this podcast and gets weird crackles and digital stuff, I'm sure they miss the
miss it
studio
too.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they miss it as well.
Yeah.
All right. So Kiss, Marry, Kill. We got some fun ones. I'm gonna do this a little bit backwards. So here we go. Dear Andy and the team, I really enjoy the Kiss, Marry, Kill part of the show, but I have one regret. While you often talk about the kill and marry choices, you never talk about what could be the indie treatment of the Kiss ones. So this week I have an alternative game with only indie games. This one you'll marry, the ones you'll marry will have the unexpected AAA budget, and the ones you'll kiss will have a classic indie sequel. P.S. bonus point if you can specify which AAA developer you would choose to make said game. Which, oh God, I think I would just give the indie people a bigger budget is what I would do. I don't think it needs to go to a bigger studio. I think that's the answer to all those. So we don't have to do that part. I think the answer is give the amazing creative talent that have come up with these games more money. That's what I want. Give them more money.
Yeah.
All right. So round 1. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Kiss, Marry, Kill, which is everyone so they know. Marry, you like it a lot. You want to make it big. Kiss, kind of an indie sequel. Kill. Hollow Knight, Limbo, and Shovel Knight.
Didn't we? I swear to God, we had this one a couple weeks ago.
I don't think we have. It just they always hurt, Dan. They always hurt.
Oh, this one's not going to hurt. It just sounds so familiar.
It sounds so familiar. Well, it's because we've done some Hollow Knight stuff recently, but I don't think we've had Limbo versus Hollow Knight versus another Shovel Knight, which I wish it was Limbo Knight, so it was like the 3 nights, but that's not what we have. So, Kim, you have never played this game before. Kiss, Marry, Kill, Hollow Knight, Limbo, Shovel Knight. You are on. What do you pick?
God, I'd marry Limbo. Yeah, I'd kiss. Oh God, Shovel Knight, and then kill. What was the other one?
You're killing Hollow Knight?
Yes.
That's like a crime, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not letting Limbo go, and you know what? Shovel Knight, I like it a lot. So
no, it's your choice, but I tell you, right here, just like gotta pull that out.
I'm just here. I'm here to annoy everyone.
Yeah, that's good
with my choices. So.
You're doing a great job, Kim.
I killed Hollow Knight a couple weeks ago too. It's okay.
Yay! I have a friend. I have a friend.
Yeah.
Oh, so bad, so bad. All right, Mr. I Killed Hollow Knight 2. What do you choose this time, Alex?
Oh, this is tough because once again, I feel like I need to stick to the game, not the developer, because I need everything Playdead. Just keep giving it to me. But I like Limbo told its story, so I think I just enjoy Limbo and I kill Limbo, which means I guess that means I'm kissing.
Murderer!
I know. I'm kissing. Yeah, I would kiss. This is why the internet sucks, because it's just going back on my other pick. But I guess I'd marry Hollow Knight just to see what else that series can do.
Are you kidding me right now? There's no consistency. To
I
you
know.
at all.
No, they're different questions. They're different questions. I get it. I understand.
And I love.
Whatever.
I really like Shovel Knight, but I could just use like one more. I'm okay with that. But like,
right.
if it's developers, I'm marrying Limbo, and Playdead's making games forever. So
Okay. All right. All right. All right. Understood.
that's my
Dan?
logic.
Dan? Hollow Knight, Limbo, Shovel Knight?
Yeah, well, we're gonna marry Hollow Knight because I am consistent. We're gonna kiss Shovel Knight, and sucks, but bye Limbo.
You both killed Limbo? What the hell?
Oh, I like
married
Limbo a lot, but I could read a book or something. And
Wow,
get that kind of,
okay.
cerebral thing going on.
That's just disrespectful at this point now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
All right.
I feel like you guys are just doing this to piss me off.
No.
That's kind of that's the spirit
Welcome.
of the game.
Welcome to the
Welcome to
game.
Kiss Marry Kill. Kim, welcome aboard.
Oh my god, I thought Limbo would be a shoo-in for everyone to marry. Jeez.
You should have seen this show a couple weeks ago. My God, it was horrible.
We
It
all
was
wanted
murder.
to. It
Yeah,
was
it
so
was-
bad. Yeah. It's entertaining.
Someone knew who they came after us. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So for me, marry Hollow Knight, I kiss Limbo, and I kill Shovel Knight, which is crazy, but that's the way I gotta go. Limbo, I always wanted Limbo to be an eternal loop. Was my game idea for that? Is at the end, like that you would go in and then come out the tunnel on the other side, like you just keep playing the same game over again. That you'd be literally in limbo. I thought it was such a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Such a missed opportunity. All right, never mind. I go on these weird tangents. Round two.
That wasn't that weird.
No. That was nice.
Makes sense.
Round two. Dead Cells. The Binding of Isaac. Hotline Miami. Once again, Indie
God, this is
edition.
hard.
Dead Cells. Binding of Isaac. Hotline Miami.
Kim, these are not hard. You should have seen again a couple weeks ago. Actual hard ones. These are easy.
These are hard. I mean, like,
I
also this,
don't even know what to do here.
I have Dead Cells and Binding of Isaac installed on my computer right now, and my computer at work.
Okay.
That's how I feel about both of those games. So, by the way, to answer the question, so sorry, Hotline Miami, in my world, I love. I think I would marry Dead Cells, I think, and then kiss Binding of Isaac is my. By the way, not to go first that time. But Kim, what do you think?
I guess I would marry Binding of Isaac, kiss Dead Cells, and then bye-bye Hotline Miami.
2 Miami's down. For a lot of people, that was like their game of the year the year that game came out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alex.
It's gonna be 3. Kill Hotline Miami, marry Dead Cells, and then kiss. What was the other one?
Yeah, the Binding of Isaac.
Binding of Isaac.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Dan.
Same list as same list as yours, Andy. So marry Dead Cells, kiss Binding, and Hotline Miami, whatever.
We
Let me say
all
again.
put it at the bottom.
Goodbye.
I
Wow.
know.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
I'll take the soundtrack. I don't need the game. Just give me the soundtrack. We're good.
We'll just read the book about it.
We've got more of these because I actually think this is a good little run here. By the way, I'd like to point out this is from Edward from Montreal, Edern. So thank you. By the way, I'd like to make sure we get a little call out for this great list. So this next round is Firewatch, Gone Home, and Oxenfree. Kiss.
Oh my
Mary-
god.
Oh God, what a tough one. Let's just wheel out the cart and bury them all.
Dan, brutal. Firewatch, Gone Home, Oxenfree. I like that Kim is upset about this. Kim, you are first. You are put on the hot seat.
I'd marry Gone Home. I'd kill Oxenfree, and then the kiss goes to
Firewatch.
Yes, Firewatch.
All right, that's an interesting choice. It's an interesting choice.
Hmm.
It's very tough. Very tough. Dan, so you killed them all.
In this, no, I still play the game, and I know some other people have done the kill all option
Yeah, I
before,
know.
but I'll still play by the spirit of the game and the rules.
Yeah.
So if I have to pick one for each category, we'll marry Gone Home, Kiss Oxenfree, and Barry Firewatch.
You and Val.
Barry?
Dumps.
Oh,
Barry
God.
deep.
You no love for Firewatch, huh?
I mean, I don't have love for any of those, but
Oh, fair. Yeah,
more love for some than others, we
Yeah.
shall say.
Yeah.
there you go.
How about you, Alex?
Gone Home and Oxenfree are consistently the ones that I have downloaded on probably every platform and I haven't touched. Everyone's always talks them up really, and I haven't played the two. So I would marry Firewatch. I'm more interested in the storytelling of Gone Home, so I guess I'd kiss that and say goodbye to Oxenfree.
Interesting. Gone Home's only like 4 hours,
Yeah.
5 hours.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot,
Something like that.
depending on how you play it, it can be way faster than that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, don't speed run it. It's supposed to be atmospheric.
Yeah.
That's a really hard one. Oxenfree was really loved, and I tried it multiple times, and I never quite got into it, and I never understood why. So I wanted to. I actually met the developers once. Really nice people.
They're awesome.
Like super great. The game just never clicked for me, and I never understood why. And I have tried multiple times. So for me, actually, I really enjoyed Firewatch. Firewatch is my marry, Gone Home is my kiss, and Oxenfree, unfortunately, is my kill. But that's a tough one. I feel like Oxenfree is one of those games I need to play still. All right, we are going to skip to this next one because I think it's tough. So.
Oh boy.
We're skipping 2 rounds. 2 rounds that I think were pretty good, by the way. They put some really good games against
Ooh.
it.
Okay.
But
There's
I-
more.
But we're
this
going to
is-
skip 2 rounds. So we're going to go straight to this one. So Undertale versus the Stanley Parable and her story.
Oh, come on. These are all targeting me.
Kim, you don't know anything about that.
You do. You got to watch the one where they literally picked Dan out and just gave Dan horrible ones. So Undertale, Stanley Parable, her story. Let's start with you, Dan.
Sure. Marry Undertale, Kiss Parable, kill her story.
The look on Kim's face
Easy mode.
was classic. Alex,
I haven't played any of these, so I'm abstaining.
abstaining. All
Yeah.
right, Kim, how about you?
You can't abstain.
All
And
right.
By the way, you should play the Stanley Parable.
To be
is
fair,
what
if you
I'm
haven't
gonna
played
say.
any,
Yeah.
then yeah, I
Yeah.
guess it's fine.
Yeah, I mean,
I
marry Undertale. There you go.
marry Stanley Parable. God, this is so hard. Kiss her story, and I'd actually get rid of Undertale, which is going to kill Dan.
I mean, you can kill what you want. It's wrong, but you can do what you want.
I do think it's kind of interesting. I thought you might pick. I mean, I know her story is definitely like that game was very compelling. I really got into that game. I love the Stanley Parable. Like it's one of my favorite games. Undertale, I enjoyed. I didn't quite get the as crazy over it as everyone else did. And I liked her story, but I'm going to go with a weird pick of I'm going to kill her story, not because it wasn't amazing, but because I've done it. I loved it. That's it. I don't need any more. That's fine. Right. I'm going down that path, which is I'm kind of copping out. Then kiss Undertale and marry Stanley Parable. But thank you very much. That was a fun list to go through of doing those indie games. But once again, we want to give more money to the indie developers, given your bonus point. Like all those developers. And by the way, I'd like to point out all of these developers made great games, super fantastic. We're just playing a stupid game. Please don't get mad at us for killing your favorites.
Yeah, I don't think we needed to temper that. No one here is taking shots at devs or anything.
Yeah. Here's one that I thought was kind of fun. Hey, GI Force, I was wondering if you could do a Kiss, Marry, Kill of video game spinoffs. Your choices are Pokemon Snap, Dr. Mario, and Halo Wars. Mike from Pahrump, Nevada.
Easy.
Easy. Okay, I got to call it easy. Let's hear it, Dan.
Marry Pokemon Snap. Kiss whichever one isn't Halo Wars because we're killing Halo Wars.
You couldn't even remember Dr. Mario's name.
It didn't even matter which was in that slot because Halo Wars is so far down on the ladder. The second slot didn't even matter.
I feel like you dissed Dr. Mario there. That it's unacceptable in my book.
You know what? I actually like Dr. Mario a lot, but it's just that, like,
No, you don't. You don't. You couldn't even remember his name.
We were just on such two ultimate tiers of the top and the bottom that the middle one just, it just blanked. It didn't matter. We had such huge contrasts of like the glory of Pokemon Snap that needs to return, and Halo Wars, like, why is that still a thing, right? And then you've got Dr. Mario, which is like, okay, cool, I can play that, except if it's a mobile game with awful monetization. They'd never do that.
Yeah. Where's Ben?
You know what? By the way, yeah, that game is. I didn't like that game. That game was bad. But I'd like to point out, I think I have a Dan War going on right now. I think with our Simon Quest.
Dan War.
Dan War. Dan War. Dan War.
Huh.
I'll put that out there. All right, Alex, what's your choice?
Marry Pokemon Snap. I'd kiss Dr. Mario, kill Halo Wars. I even as a Halo fan, that game never did anything for me. So goodbye.
Kim?
I guess I would marry Dr. Mario, kiss Pokemon Snap, and bye-bye Halo Wars.
Halo Wars isn't going to win any of these.
No.
Okay, I misread the room here again. But I gave you the worst Pokemon game. I gave you I thought we were going to get to rip on
Oh
Pokemon
my
here.
God.
You gave us the best Pokemon game.
The best
Andy,
Pokemon game? This is the
you're-
worst Pokemon game ever.
No.
You're both
That game
misguided.
is a far superior Pokemon experience to many of the other titles.
Wait, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
I'm warning you, the comments about Pokemon Snap are going to come because
Pokemon Snap is
Andy.
genius, okay? It's genius.
It's not genius. It's not genius.
What is it?
Garbage. Garbage. Pokemon Snap is garbage. Garbage.
It's
All
just
right.
a chill game, you're playing.
I gave you guys a chance.
Funk. No funk.
I gave you guys a
game.
chance and you failed. Dan War, don't start it with me. All right. So I kill Pokemon Snap.
Wow.
I marry Dr. Mario. Dr. Mario is great.
Yep.
And I think Halo Wars could be a really great RTS. It just needs I don't know that I love that particular game, but I think you could do something cool in that universe. I'm down with that. So thank you, Mike, for that question. But
Andy thought we were actually all going to kill Pokemon Snap.
I thought we were all gonna kill Pokemon Snap.
Like, hey, you Pikachu, or what's up? You know what I mean? Like, there's much worse Pokemon games. Like, come on.
Yeah, we
No.
can chuck all those Pikachu games right into the trash, but not Pokemon Snap.
I love Pokemon Snap.
Okay, never mind. I don't even know what to say.
Are
I
we
don't even
ending
know
the
what to say.
show?
It's straight up like trolling at this point.
Okay, all right. Okay, we're moving on, is what we're doing. Howdy, Andy and the GI crew. After hearing Andy and Dan talk at length about WoW, I'm finally giving it time and really enjoying it. That's great news. Good to hear it. Yay. Welcome to the fold. Your life's over. What's different about this is that MMOs are not in my wheelhouse. The last attempt to pick it up was in 2005. Current events and a rebuilt PC made this a little easier. When was a time any of y'all picked up a game you never would and found yourself really liking it? That's a good question. I mean, we talked about it earlier, Dark Souls. I didn't think I would like it, and I loved it.
Oh God.
That was one for me.
Edith Finch.
Edith Finch? Oh, that's a great game.
I don't typically like that genre, as evidenced by my
As
response.
you just, yeah.
Yep. But that one I absolutely loved.
Dan, you just scored a point in our Dan War. Just so you know, we can now maybe have peace talks going forward that you like that game. Alex?
I like the idea that there's like a scoreboard for your guys' war. Hitting baskets.
It never ends.
Yeah. I talked about it at the beginning of the podcast. Gears Tactics, not a genre that I have ever dealt with, never enjoyed, but playing it for work, I've really, really become taken with it, and I'm excited to play more.
Excellent. We got getting great callbacks here with this segment. There we go. Yeah. Kim?
God, I don't have a good answer for this. I'll say something that's going to surprise everyone. I didn't think I'd ever like Overwatch as much as I do. Like my whole life I played RPGs. Like I was telling someone this the other day. I didn't start playing like a lot of other genres. Like I played like the basic Mario games and everything growing up, but like I didn't start playing anything out of RPGs until like the PS3 era because they came out all the time. So I was always busy with them. So I didn't really play many shooters then. And now I play much more. And Overwatch, I really like. It hooked me, and I found like I always felt like I couldn't be successful in competitive games like that because I hadn't played as many shooters, and Overwatch gave me like a way to play that could work for me where I didn't have to be as accurate as I like were. So it's probably that. I don't think anybody would have predicted before that release, like Kim's gonna get so obsessed with this she's gonna do 950 hours of Overwatch.
Then buy a chair of it. Yeah.
Buy a chair, wear apparel every day. Like if you would have said, I would have been like, no, I probably thought I was going to play a few rounds of it and that would be it. But
I'd also like to point out, not only do I miss the studio back at the office, but I used to enjoy coming by Kim's desk and seeing what Overwatch apparel she was wearing that day or how she'd matched it with her sneakers, whatever. I was into that. I always like to come over and check out the fashion display from Kim, so that is missed as well, and another one of our missed points. So on to our Kiss, Marry, Kill suggestion. This one's actually a kind of, I'm going to call it an either or, because basically this is another one of those twists that someone's brought us. You basically can only marry or kill. That's it.
Okay.
There's no middle ground.
No kissing. No kissing.
There's no nuance to this game.
Yeah, exactly. There's none. So get used to it, Dan. Dan War. I'm really enjoying the show, Andy. It's a great host. Ernie from Divine, Texas. So thank you, Ernie. Here's what he's saying. All 2D versions of Metroid, Zelda, and Mario versus 3D versions of Metroid, Zelda, and Mario.
This one's easy.
2D.
See? You did all that complaining early, and it's not that hard.
It's not. I'm going to get a lot of hate for it.
I know, that's the fun part.
2D.
That's what we're looking for.
2D.
I'll be a millennial 3D.
3D. 2D. I'm 2D. You're the weird one.
Correct.
You're the weird one.
That's
Thank you, Ernie.
Yeah.
That was a fun little offshoot I wanted to do. Now, all right. Now we're going to do one other weird one. All right. All right. Hi, city boys, comma. When growing up, I worked on a potato farm for multiple years and can confirm the only farm animals there are potatoes. Argument settled.
It's done.
Now, on to business. I thought of a villainous twist to the Kiss, Marry, Kill game called Betray, Obey, Usurp. In this game, you find yourself a minion to some classic video game baddies and must decide your role in their quest for power. I've included a description of the options below. Betray, you can't take it anymore. Whether it's because the reward of their head is too great or they are no longer the person you fell in love with, you will be the knife in the villain's back, bringing their scheme to an end. Obey. You're ready and willing to do the master's bidding, no matter the cost. You will play a vital but mostly unnoticed role in the journey to world domination. Usurp, the ultimate compliment to villainy. You appreciate the bad guy's ideals, powers, and assets so much that there's only one conclusion. It must all be yours. Your fellow minions rally behind you in a swift and successful mutiny, claiming leadership that you gain everything the previous master and lose 8 morality points. Here are the villains that you will be deciding on. So, everybody understands.
Yeah, this is really weird.
Yeah.
I know. That's why I like it. There's not that many. So basically, it's 3 villains that I'm going to read off. And you pick the villain that you would want to be. Essentially, that would be the one that you usurp. You become that person, right?
Yeah.
The obey is the like, whatever. I'll go along. I'll follow along to that person. And betray is your kill.
Yep.
Right. So that's the one you
I
don't
get the
like.
concept. That's a
right. I'm just making sure it's clear for everybody.
We're definitely in weird land at this point.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. I love it when I can't believe, by the way, thank you all for anything you send in to podcast@gameinformer.com, number one, because it really does make my Wednesday mornings. I sit around, I read it all morning. It's great. I love hearing what you have to say. Yeah. Number two, I can't believe someone spent so much time coming up with this game. Like, that's cool. That's cool to me. We've had a lot of crazy games that people spend time on. So thank you for your time. So group one, Shao Kahn from Mortal Kombat, Dr. Robotnik from Sonic, or Dutch from Red Dead Redemption. Who do you become? Who do you kill? Who do you just let them run over the world?
Okay.
All right, Kim, you're ready to go. I like Kim's enthusiasm.
I'm gonna become Dutch.
You're gonna become Dutch. All right. So then which dictator do you stop in his tracks? Robotnik and his evil plan against Sonic, Shao Kahn and how he wants to take over the Mortal Kombat tournament?
Shao Kahn.
Shao Kahn. You're tired of that tournament. It's done.
Yeah, I'm done
Gone.
with it.
All right, fantastic. And you're just gonna let Dr. Robotnik ruin Sonic's day. Just go on, just fine.
I
You're okay
mean,
with that.
Sonic says he's so fast, he should be able to handle it.
All right.
Got
I like that. Well, leave it up to Sonic. Alex, you seem enthusiastic to this.
I think my list is the same as Kim's. I just think I'd go along with Robotnik because I would laugh every day.
Yeah.
You know, just like see him foil himself in his own plans. Dutch, they were close, man. They were close to finding redemption, and I'd get him over the hump. I'd get the Vanderlyn gang where they need to go.
But you do realize to do this, you have to kill Dutch and take over and rule. All right.
The
I wanna
sacrifice, yeah.
All right. Sacrifice. Dan?
I become Shao Kahn, no doubt.
Of course you would. Of course.
And I will ally and I'll obey Robotnik. That'd be pretty fun. And then, Dutch is just boring. So he's out
You
of
just
it.
leave him be. You let him run.
Yeah.
You just let him run the gang.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Dutch is
not
the
boring.
last one. Dutch is I'm betraying Dutch.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Right.
All right.
I'm working with Robotnik. I'm becoming Shao Kahn. I mean, that was obvious, right?
Yeah, I mean, you get to run the tournament now.
Yeah.
Right.
We're going to have a really good one. No more of these crappy tournaments like they've been running. We're going to get some real crazy stuff going on here
Exactly. In this corner, Sub-Zero. In this corner, Duck.
now.
Fight it
right.
out.
That's right.
All right. Group two. Here we go.
Oh boy.
Ganon from Zelda, for anybody that doesn't know.
Mhm.
Handsome Jack from Borderlands. And GLaDOS from Portal. All
Okay.
right. Dan, what do you got?
I'll become Ganon.
You become
Although
Ganon. All right.
I would like to win a little bit more though.
Yeah.
I'd side with GLaDOS, and God no, Handsome Jack is out of here. I'm killing Handsome Jack. So I don't want to hear him talk.
You don't want to hear anymore.
Yeah.
Guy. Goodbye. All right. Kim?
I'd kill Handsome Jack as well. I would obey Ganon, and then that leaves face.
GLaDOS.
Her face.
GLaDOS,
GLaDOS. Yeah, her GLaDOS. That's what's like I would not marry. I would become GLaDOS.
You'd become GLaDOS. You would be like, the cupcake is a lie. The RPG is a lie.
Yep.
Yes, exactly. Alex.
I think I would usurp Handsome Jack, get my space army together, kill Ganon because he loses every time, and then obey GLaDOS because how could you not?
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
No.
I think that's me. I think GLaDOS is. I just like listening. I like listening to GLaDOS. I could do that all day long.
Yeah.
Like I'll follow. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Aperture Science.
I am nowhere near as clever as GLaDOS, so I couldn't possibly usurp her.
Yeah, exactly. So you ride along on that one.
Yeah.
I think I'm with you. I think I usurp Handsome Jack. I take over that, and I probably kill Ganon. Just get him out of the way. Whatever. All right. Fantastic. Last one. And this one's a little trickier.
Okay.
Prophet
Is
of
it-
Truth. Prophet of Truth from Halo. Bowser from Mario. And Sephiroth from Final Fantasy.
I mean, come on.
You have to become Sephiroth, right?
Who's not going to
Yeah.
pick Sephiroth?
You have to. How could you not?
Wow, with the RPG nerds here, they're like, oh my god, who doesn't want to be Sephiroth? Do I get the coral that follows me around everywhere? Okay, you guys become Sephiroth,
Yeah.
and you let Bowser do whatever he wants. I'm saying you're probably predictable here, right?
Yeah.
You got
Yep.
this. You've got this.
Oh
one
my
figured
god,
out.
you know
I
it.
do.
You know
Okay,
it.
all right. Let's ask Alex, who might have an interesting answer.
No, I'm gonna go with the flow on this one. Sephiroth's too cool not to become.
Yeah. You got to.
Bowser's just kind of dumb, but I love him, and yeah, I'd probably just kill the Prophet of Truth. Do my best Master Chief impression.
I go the other way. I back Bowser.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like let's go, Bowser. Let's get it on. Let's do it. I kill Sephiroth. Yeah, that's right.
I'm not even surprised.
That's right. And I become the prophet of truth. Is what I become. I take that over.
Now that one is surprising.
He's just trying to be different.
I don't think anyone has ever wanted to become the prophet of truth. Ever.
I'm just saying, like I'm gonna control this universe somehow.
All right.
Everyone else doesn't matter. I can control it all. I can control space and time.
You basically have like 8 Death Stars at your disposal, so
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm just saying. That's what I pick.
Yeah.
Sephiroth. No big deal. No big deal. All right. That was a fun round of Kiss, Marry, Kill. We do have one last twist. This is the week of twists. One
God.
Uh-oh.
All right. Hi, Andy and the rest of the lovable crew. He called you lovable.
Wow.
Lovable.
Nailed it.
Thanks for giving some time to the duck debacle of last week. It helps to talk about it. And he writes up a very nice thing. This is from Dan. I hope not our Dan. But basically,
No.
he's set up that there are millions of universes out there. And in all these universes, in the one we live, all the names of video games are already taken. So to publish these games in this space, we have to rename some very classic games.
Oh God.
So number one is, Halo Combat Evolved. We want to release it, but we can't call it Halo Combat Evolved.
Right.
What do we, and we can work together on this, we only have to have one answer. What do we call Halo Combat Evolved in this universe where Halo Combat Evolved is already owned by like a pharmaceutical company? It's actually the ring you sit on when you have like a butt issue that you have to sit on, to make sure that it's comfortable. That's the Halo Combat Evolved is what that is. But we're putting out a video game in space with a leader in a spacesuit. So what do we call that? What do we call this game?
I feel like you gotta have Spartan in the title somewhere because it sounds cool.
Yeah.
No.
Space
Sure.
Spartan. Space Spartan.
Yeah.
Space Spartan.
The Space Spartans.
Space Spartan.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm down on that.
Dan doesn't like
Done
it.
deal.
I
What do
like
you like,
I
Dan?
like Spartan in there. I like Spartan in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Master Chief, the Spartan's Tale, or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of like adventure gamey.
Yeah, a little
It is
bit.
very,
But
yeah.
Space Spartan, it's like an Atari cart, man. Like,
That's yeah, it is.
all right.
Yeah, it is. All right. Dan War's back on. All right. Next one is that we need to rename is Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link. I'm setting you up here.
Zelda's back, Jack.
I approve of that. I approve of that. All right. Last one. Last one. This is it. This is silliness. We're going down the
It is.
path of silliness.
We're way beyond.
World of Warcraft. We cannot call it World of Warcraft.
Can we? But no Warcraft at all in it.
No Warcraft at all. Warcraft is a military industrial complex
Sure. So
that runs this nation.
Adventures in Azeroth.
Adventure. That's actually pretty good. It's not bad.
Give you points for alliteration there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God. Yeah. Wow. That's actually not like the other ones were bad. That one's not actually bad.
Dan, you've gone and done it.
It tells you
Yeah.
what we're doing.
Yeah, and you came up with that so quickly. Wait, this is from Dan. Did you send this in and prepare ahead
It
of
was
time?
it was
I
totally
wish.
him.
You think I would have done the Zelda's back Jack line if I would have had time to think about it?
That's
I will
what you
say-
want us to think.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
what you
exactly.
want us to think.
And also, too, I'd like to point out when I started getting all those Dan emails about the ducks, I was like,
Oh, for
Dan has
God's
called
sake.
all his friends to send in emails.
I
to
have
defend
never
his
done
position.
that. I have never done that.
You've never done that.
No.
All right. We'll believe you for now. We'll believe you for now.
Just
I
We'll
t-
believe you for now.
Trace all those emails back. We'll get the NSA in here.
We're gonna
They'll
check
take
their
care
IP.
of it.
We're gonna check
Do
their
it.
IP addresses. We are.
Do it.
Dan Ward. All right. So I just want to do some comments. People sent in some great comments. Number one was Mick from Maine, one of our constant readers, listeners. He said, you talked about everybody. We talked about games we were playing during the pandemic. He brought in his 5 games, which I thought I'd just read off, which was Rune Factory 4, Monster Hunter Iceborne, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and Final Fantasy VII Remake. All great games, all great suggestions.
Yeah.
So if you're out there looking for something to play, Mick from Maine's got some great suggestions for you. Kim, we've never actually heard what's you kind of mentioned that you've been playing some NHL, but like what's your number one go-to game? Animal Crossing through this whole thing?
You know what? It just depends on the week. Actually, yeah, because like I could say like 2 weeks ago I was very into Animal Crossing. Now I'm kind of like I'm checking in every day. I'm doing what I need to, but not to the level.
Not in love with it. Okay, all right. We can go ahead and go with that. So next question is, how is Fortnite still in beta?
I think we all want to know the answer to that question.
That is from Travis from Scottsdale, Arizona, which cracks me up. Thank you, Scott from, Travis from Scottsdale. Oops, I got that one wrong. How about Scott from Travisdale? Okay, Travis, we appreciate the email. That is a funny question, which Dan and we love to make fun of that. I cannot believe it. I was playing, like Alex, you were doing last night. I was playing Call of Duty Warfront.
Yeah.
And that right there in the corner is like beta.
Yep.
I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
It's not beta.
It's not beta.
It's a full game.
Isn't there like some, I don't know, this is isn't there like some loophole where if things in beta, you can do live updates to the game that don't have to go through like some of the processes?
Oh, just like with like Sony or Microsoft to get them up on consoles quicker?
Not 100% sure about that, but I think I've heard that before.
Interesting. Okay.
Not that Fortnite gets a pass on that after being out for years, okay?
Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. I just think, I don't know. It makes me so angry. It really does. Because at some point, it's just like your game is out. When you've done like 70 patches on it, it's not in beta anymore. It's just an excuse.
Yeah, we're in World 2 now, Andy. We're in literally World 2, and it's still in beta.
Well, I just want to say the Game Informer show, we're in alpha, and we will always be in alpha. So any problems you encounter, they're not our fault. Just letting you know that. It ain't our fault.
But the cash shop's working, baby.
Yeah. But you can buy our merch. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Did you guys watch the Travis Scott thing on Fortnite last week? It was cool.
I did. Yeah. I was ready to be cynical about it. Then I actually watched it. I was like, oh, the production value in this is incredible. Like it was awesome. They also released a really good song through it. So
yeah, it did. It was very cool. I laughed. He's like, because I'm the guest. Dan and Kim, you guys didn't watch it.
I had RPGs to play, Andy. Come on.
I did too. But I am fascinated about the concept of what this means for our world moving forward. To just bring this to extrapolate a little bit on this concept. Like, are we going to have artists going to do their things inside digital universes instead? We always used to talk about this kind of stuff, but now it's actually happening, and it's going to start with like the more, I think, the more EDM and stuff like that, techno stuff like that. That it's going to lend itself to more digital environments. But eventually, are we going to see like, a Stones concert inside Fortnite 2 or something like that? I mean, that's just an example. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, Marshmallow already was in Fortnite.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he was the first like kind of event that they did inside it. And Star Wars was a bigger event because it was like live and had a bunch of other interactions that took place during that. But they
literally had prequel information inside the game.
They did. Yeah.
What?
It's crazy. Yeah, it's totally crazy. Yeah, I thought this one was a fun way to view an experience around that. I mean, they really did play it up. It was kind of crazy. Like the Astro World flew up, then like you got blown back in game, right? And so like, and then all of a sudden you like turn back around, and then there's just a giant Travis Scott like breaking it down, and it's pretty hot as far as like that stuff goes. He's giant. He's got like killer Jordans on. Oh, yeah. Like it was very, very cool. And then it kind of goes into a crazier experience. You can watch it on YouTube. We have it on GameInformer.com. We have a link to a great video of it. It's just like a video. You know what I mean? Like it's not interactive in a whole lot of ways. I mean, you do get to float around some, and you control your character while it takes place. But I mean, you're just part of the experience, right? But it's an interesting way to do it. And I mean, 12 million people experienced it live. 3 million people watched it on streaming. I mean, that's nuts. So yeah, to your question, Dan, I mean, yeah, people are going to be doing stuff like this. If you're Fortnite, that's what always makes me laugh. If you have a brand big enough as Fortnite that you can create these collaborations, cool. I just don't think it's available to everyone quite yet, right? I don't know that everyone can do that. But,
I mean, like obviously Fortnite's got it on lock, but I'm saying like some other big online entities as well. Like you know, a Call of Duty thing like that. How would you even do that? Or World of Warcraft even, you know, some crazy stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I think more people will try it. Definitely. I think there's no reason not to. It is weird. Like the Travis thing was odd in that you could only have 50 people in the instance at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was limited as to how many people are in there. You know, I think it's if I went to, like you said, like if the Rolling Stones did a concert in there, it would be really weird to be in a concert and there are only 25 other people there. I mean, I do think as you build the experiences that don't have to feel that way, but they do feel oddly empty to me as far as like.
Can you imagine like the download rate for like the over 60 crowd doing that for like, how do I work this thing? I gotta watch the concert. I think that would be hilarious in a great way, right? Like all of a sudden you get a bunch of like older people addicted to Fortnite out of that. That idea is free.
That idea is free, yeah. But I mean, like there were a ton of people who didn't know who Travis Scott was, which kind of amazed me. Not blaming anyone here who may not know who Travis Scott is.
All right. He's just calling me out, Dan Warren.
But yeah, it was pretty cool. It's worth checking out. So the last question we're going to do here today is that I had a couple emails that brought this up, which was I'm going to read them pretty quickly. So hey, Andy and the rest of the illustrious GI staff. Like all of us, games have been a huge part of our lives since childhood. The first time my dad challenged me at a match of versus mode Star Fox on SNES, a light bulb went off, and I've loved this hobby ever since. All my life, though, video games as a hobby have been diminished and ridiculed as a waste of time rather than a full-blown interactive pieces of art and entertainment. I've had to fight for every inch of legitimacy amongst many of my family and friends who fail to understand the ways video games can color and improve our lives. I'm curious about any stories any of you have about it at a time when you felt you were marginalized because of being a gamer, especially as professionals who've covered video games for decades. I really think there might be someone out there younger and more impressionable than I who could benefit from hearing from adults who have successful and happy lives, who have chosen video games despite public or familial misunderstanding about them. Thanks for everything. I've been reading your magazine since 1999 and have always appreciated your voices as journalists. Ryan Wood from Pennsylvania. Thank you, Ryan. And I'm going to read this next one because it's on the same thing. So hello, GI crew. I hope you are all well despite these very crazy times we find ourselves in. So I have a story and then a question. Recently, my mother-in-law was FaceTiming my kids, and during the conversation, she asked what daddy was doing to my son, and he replied, playing video games. My mother-in-law, not knowing I was in earshot, made a snide remark, something to the effect of, is that all he ever does? She went on to say to my son, don't you want to do something else for fun? But I'm not saying this to try to paint her in a negative light, obviously. However, it got me thinking about the stereotypes against gamers and how it's not viewed by many as a respectable hobby in the same way as things like sports, movies, and countless other hobbies and recreational activities are. So my question is, do you think gamers still face this type of behavior? If so, will this passion of ours ever be perceived differently by the masses? I'd really like to hear your perspective on this, and I'm sure you can relate to this in some way. Thanks, Jared from Kansas City, Missouri. So, two questions. Very similar in tone in that they're like, you know, the legitimacy of games. Should kids be playing games? Like, you know, these are questions that still come up, which seems a little crazy in 2020, right? Like games feel like they're everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go one at a time. Have you guys ever felt like your love of games has been questioned or diminished? Or have you ever felt like that people kind of put you down because of your enjoyment of the hobby?
Let's go around the horn.
Yeah. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, middle school and high school, I not suppressed my nerddom, but like it's not what I started every conversation with. You know what I mean? I had my main group of gaming people, but then like, you know, I was on the football team, and you know what I mean? Like, so I guess let's be clear, I've never really felt marginalized. But like there's points in my life where I wish I could have expressed my love for gaming a little bit more, and that's my own, you know, self-consciousness. I definitely like starting here, I got the classic question of like, oh, you just play video games all day, right? That's your job. And it's like, no, not at all. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like to be in this space, not only do you have to love games, like that's everyone here loves games. You have to have like great writing ability or good video editing skills or good social media skills. You know what I mean? You need that extra layer of something.
Yeah.
So
Which someday we'll find it here.
not today. Not today.
How about you, Dan?
Oh yeah, I mean for sure, and I think I want to preface this by saying I think everybody's got it way better now because I think games are pretty much culturally accepted as a cornerstone of everything at this point.
Yeah.
I guess probably the most would be back in grade school. I was seen as a smart child, and my teachers were very against my my love of games. They told me to stop playing games and focus on, you know, my other abilities. And they more than one gave me a lot of stuff. You know, parent teacher conferences. They'd say, you know, have them stop playing Nintendo instead of, and you know, do more academic stuff. Even though I was, you know, nailing the grades, right? They just thought that I was, you know, I just get my work.
Life. Yeah,
I'd get my work done. I'd get my work done and be like, you know, I'm gonna go play Final Fantasy now, right? Whatever. Your stupid history paper's there. It's like everything's correct. Enjoy it. I'm gonna go play FF. And they're like, well, he's just out there. I think the actual term was, and rest in peace, she was a good teacher despite this. You know, her phrase that she sold to my parents was, you know, he's really smart, but his head's out there in Nintendo land all the time. Sounds like I made it up. This is an actual thing that happened. And, you know, I think our generation of gamers certainly, it doesn't matter what happened to us, because guess what? We made it through, and games are like the biggest deal ever now, crushing all other forms of entertainment. So, hey guys, we won. Who cares? Let's go have fun.
Yeah. How about you, Kim?
What I find interesting is that just as I was growing up, like people didn't really talk about games the way they do now. People weren't wearing video game shirts all day, all the time. You know, now I walk into a store at Target or something, I can spot like 4 other people wearing like shirts related to gaming and somehow. But I did find it interesting when I was doing my feature on addiction. I talked to a lot of psychologists about just video games in general, and they were saying like parents have to be careful because this is how kids socialize now. Like if you cut them off from some of this stuff, you're blocking out their social interactions with other people. A lot of people just go, you know, home and they want to just play games with like their friends. Like it's become a new, very, very social habit. I actually think I get more scrutiny now than I did though when I tell people what I do, because they'll be like, oh, what do you do? And I'll say, I'll write for a magazine. Which magazine? And then you say it, and then people, they're like not interested anymore. Or it goes one or two ways. Either someone is like, that's so cool, or you get the other person who's like, oh, that's what you do? Like, do you play games all day? So I mean, I've had that stuff said, but it's always just been something where I always dread it when a doctor asks me what I do, because it's just always like you can feel the like, you know, them looking down at you kind of in a way like, what else do you get out? I just think nowadays too, we have other things that like you don't have to just sit and play a games. You know, we have things like Ring Fit to help with exercise and stuff like that too. So
Beat Saber.
Yeah, exactly. So there is stuff like I feel just like people don't know. There's a few generations before me who just didn't like grow up with games, and so when you ask them stuff, they're like, or when you talk about it, they don't know how to respond, but to project some of those stereotypes onto people. But
yeah, 100%.
At the end of the day, you know.
Yeah, I think that's really
not something to be ashamed of. So many people game nowadays. Like more people are gaming than ever. Mm-hmm. We're in such this technology-driven world that I think as time goes on, it will just keep getting more and more accepted that it's just a hobby, like anything else. Like if I go out and play soccer or something, that's a hobby, like just sitting there playing games.
Yeah, I think games have that unfortunate stigma that they've dealt with for a long time, that has been that it is a waste of time, where I think we've learned over time that it isn't, that people can learn to problem solve, that people can learn. I've always felt like I learned a lot of understanding like, oh, hey, here's a boundary I can push. How can I use that to my advantage? You know, even like when I made fun earlier about like campers in Call of Duty, like they're doing that because they're saying, here are the rules. Here's how life works in Call of Duty Warfront.
Yeah.
Come up with your own solutions, right? And these are people that are coming up with ways to game the system for their benefit, right? And that's life. in my view. Like that's these are lessons that you can use. Not that I'm saying go break the rules, by the way, or go camp some building. What I'm saying is that like understanding how things work, problem solving, and applying that and applying those to the issues at hand is learning, right? And I think people forget that, like that I learned things when I played Zelda. You know, when I beat Mario, I would find a fail state and figure out how to get to the win state, and that took process and logic to get there. And anyone who doesn't understand that that's what games bring is missing the point, right? And they just haven't played. To games' point, like people just haven't played, and it's one of those old jokes. Eventually, they'll move on in their lives and not bother us. And a bunch of younger gamers who did grow up with games and without games being a stigma, with everyone wearing video game t-shirts and it being all over the place, and it's going to be fine, right? So these are interesting stories, and it's always sad to hear that anyone ever kind of questions what that is. And I've certainly had moments where I have been maybe, I don't want to say, I've always stood up for games. So I never let anybody tell me that, like, make me feel bad about it. I will never feel bad about liking games. But you certainly get the point that like someone looks down on you for it, and you're like, that's unfortunate, right? I definitely would say that, like, that they will give you that look. But that's why we stand up. That's why we say good things about video games. That's why we listen to the Game Informer show. That's why you come back each and every week. Thank you for listening. Thank you, my wonderful panel, for being here. Once again, send your questions to podcast@gameinformer.com. Like us, subscribe, hit that bell on your favorite podcast, app. Find us, subscribe. You know you want it. Next week, 500 special guests. Wow, we went long this week. I apologize for the length. But thank you all. It was fun to talk games, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.